At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Presents Denton Day.
It's a great night to be an NBA fan, man. If you love playoff basketball, today was a good night for you. It's Denton Day on Westwood One Sports Night, sitting in for an under-the-weather Linnell Willingham. Hopefully he's going to be back tomorrow, so it'll be Linnell and the king of North Kakalaki, Josh Grant. But I'm taking you through the afternoon, the evening, wherever it is, wherever you are in the world. I just got done watching the two games. I got Lakers-Rockets on in front of me, and I am loving my life right now. I've been very critical of the regular season of the NBA, the way that everybody has, but watching this postseason, man, it's awesome. And the NBA has to be thrilled to an extent with how everything has gone tonight. I say to an extent because, damn it, Victor Wembanyama has a concussion. So for all the good that has come with the parity, with Philadelphia pulling off an upset over Boston, getting home court advantage, with Portland pulling off an upset over San Antonio, but doing so with Victor Wembanyama not on the floor because of the concussion. Like, all of that is fun, but the overarching dark cloud is that Victor Wembanyama is hurt. And like, damn it, man, this is what was going to make the postseason so exciting. We had the potential birth of not just a star in the league, but the ascension of a guy that we have all crowned as the next face of the NBA. We had the potential of the ascension to the top of the mountaintop this year, because not only is Victor Wembanyama playing at an insane level, but his team is legitimately good. And then to see him leave in game number 2, and to see him leave the way that he did, where if you've seen the play, it's actually really gruesome. You know, they do this weird thing on television nowadays where they don't like to show replays of things that are going to make you squeam a little bit. They did show a replay or two of this one with Wembanyama when his forehead smacked the floor. I mean, no bracing with the hands. He fell to the ground and literally his forehead took the brunt of the fall. I mean, this is a concussion that's going to keep him out. I'm not a doctor, but if I had to guess, for days, plural, for potentially weeks, plural. There's a funny thing about brains, man. We kind of have an idea of what a sprained ankle looks like and how long a timetable is for a sprained ankle if you're hurt. Oh, you sprained it? If it's a lower ankle sprain, here's the timeline. If it's a high ankle sprain, it sucks, but here's the timeline, right? You can do the same thing with like a wrist or an elbow, but the brain's a funny thing, man. You smack your head the way that he did on the floor, and he could theoretically be back on Sunday when the Spurs play game number 3, that going to Portland and playing in Portland. He could also miss the remainder of the series. We have no idea, and that's a very scary thing, one, for the player, but two, for the league, because he is the story of the postseason. Ain't nobody give a damn about OKC repeating. We hate them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander plays in a style of basketball that most people don't like, and I can't blame him. We care about Wembanyama. He has, for better or worse, become like this circus act, if you will, because even if you're not a diehard NBA fan, if you're just a casual, maybe you're a guy that literally doesn't watch the regular season, and you only come back for the postseason, you want to see this 7'4" alien. He can shoot threes. He has a handle. He can dunk standing flat-footed. He can block you standing flat-footed on the floor. You want to see him. And now there's some uncertainty on what that's going to look like. And the diagnosis was confirmed post-game by the Spurs head coach saying it is a concussion. And with the concussion, going into the concussion protocol, there is a mandatory 48-hour period before you can be evaluated. And if you want to be like super optimistic, I have to admit, generally speaking, I'm a bit more of the pessimist. But if you want to be super optimistic guy, hey, maybe in 48 hours, I mean, look, man, he's young. Did it suck? Certainly. But there's something about youth, right? And you can just bounce back from things that those of us that are a little bit older in our days, we wouldn't be able to bounce back of. If I hit my head like that, dude, I'd be out of commission for 2 months. You wouldn't hear me again on this station. You wouldn't see me again on this station. You think could be doing this with a bright light in front of my face if I hit my head like that? Hell no. You couldn't do that either. I don't know how the dude's going to fly. You got a 48-hour period. I've never flown with a concussion. I imagine it sucks. If it's even allowed. Again, like I have no idea. I've never even thought about getting on a plane with a concussion, but that's going to factor into it because you know what sucks even more than flying with a concussion? Driving from San Antonio to Portland. Just driving from San Antonio to outside of Texas feels like it's going to take an eternity. Imagine getting on a bus, John Madden style, going across the country and landing or finding your way to Portland on the bus. It'd be terrible. It's like a 3-day journey in itself. You got to start traveling now if you want something like that. So it's a really, really scary situation, but it is now it's the big storyline, and it kind of sucks because Portland played a really good fourth quarter. Scoot Henderson, a guy that was drafted in the same class as Victor Wembanyama, he was sensational tonight for Portland, but all we care about is Wembanyama smacking his head on the floor. It also did kind of show us that San Antonio, while they were good in the regular season without Victor Wembanyama, they don't have a closer. A legit closer. Like De'Aaron Fox is a really good player. He had multiple opportunities to give San Antonio the lead late in the fourth quarter while they were on the wrong side of a 12-2 run that eventually ballooned up into like a 14-2 run, 15-2 run by the end of the game. He had multiple opportunities to get the ball in the basket, couldn't do it. Stephon Castle couldn't do it. All these young guys on the Spurs roster that in the regular season had been playing high-level basketball, and the Spurs had a nice winning record, a nice comfortable winning record in the absence of Victor Wembanyama when he did miss time in the regular season. But in the postseason, they looked, dare I say, afraid of the moment. They didn't know who they wanted to go to. They didn't know how they wanted to attack the basket. In fact, they settled more so for a lot of shots on the perimeter, which I'm like an old-school hoop head. I love the new era of the threes, and you want to chuck and spray and pray and all of these different things. If you look at the best postseason players in the history of the game, what is one thing that they have that a lot of the guys in today's day and age do not have because it has been kind of forced out of the game? all of the great postseason players and the great postseason closers, they got a mid-range. They're not afraid of a 15-footer. I'm going to pull up right hand, right side of the floor, 14-footer. Boom, cash. 17-footer. Boom, cash. It feels like, and it felt like for San Antonio, their objective was either we're going to attack the basket, which that was objective B. Objective A was let's see how we can get a three. Didn't need a three at times. There was a minute left. They were down by one. They're struggling for threes. They're forcing threes up. That's going to have to be a coaching point in the lead up to game number 3. You can't have that happen. You got to figure out, A, who is going to be your closer, and B, can that person shoot a mid-range shot? If you can't shoot a mid-range shot, you are severely limiting yourself in late-game scenarios when you're down. And we saw that tonight. You have to be able to pull up from 15, from 14, even from 13. Like, get to a mid-range. LeBron, great in the mid-range. Kevin Durant, great in the mid-range. One of my favorite examples of this was all the way back with Jimmy Butler when he was going on these crazy runs for Miami, both in the bubble and then outside of the bubble. What did he do really well? He attacked the middle of the floor because teams aren't necessarily prepared to guard for that. Everyone's so accustomed to either slashing towards the basket or settling for threes. If you have a great mid-range shot, you're going to be good. The Spurs don't have anybody that seemed really comfortable with that tonight. And on the flip side, the Trailblazers, they got veterans, man. Drew Holiday had one of the most picture-perfect end-of-game inbound plays. He was on the receiving end of the pass, but the way that he positioned the defender on the short side of the court between him and the inbounder, leaving nothing but open floor towards the basket for a nice, easy, over-the-top pass. He didn't shoot after that smartly, and he just kind of ran around and took 5 seconds off of the clock. That's veteran leadership. That's championship leadership that Portland has. This is a real series now without Victor Wembanyama. As we sit here with a question mark on his status, is he going to play in game number 3? How long is he going to be out? Without having those concrete answers, you have to look at this series and say the Portland Trailblazers have a chance. Because tonight, they got a bad Denny Avdija game and they won. You know, Denny Avdija has been a really good player for them this season. All-star, been kind of their front man. He was here in Washington for a number of years before they sent him out to Portland, but he's really found life in Portland. You won a game on the road when your best player didn't play awesome. And why is that? Because Scoot Henderson did play awesome, right? So as much as Victor Wembanyama is the story because of the injury, from just a pure basketball X's and O's standpoint, Scoot Henderson was sensational tonight for Portland. 31 on 11 of 17 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3. He's a trustworthy option in the postseason this year. The postseason is about the birth of stars, guys that we have seen in the college ranks, although Scoot didn't play in college. He was in that the G League Unite situation when he came out and got drafted. But a guy that we followed since high school to the G League Unite to see what he was going to look like. There was real conversation back in 2023 about who was going to go second overall. Wemby obviously went number 1, but it was Brandon Miller, who had a great season at Alabama, or Scoot, who was playing in the G League. Now, most people don't watch the G League, so everyone really didn't know much about him unless you were like a real basketball purist. But getting drafted to Portland in the era where they're moving on from Damian Lillard kind of sucks. You're not expected to be very good. Life is really, really hard. I think he was there. I think if I'm overlapping correctly, that was also when like the DeAndre Ayton couldn't go play a basketball game because his driveway was frozen over. Like he couldn't just walk to the top of his court. I don't know what kind of neighborhood he lives in, but I assume he could have walked somewhere to pick up a card and didn't. So like Portland was a legitimate mess at times when he got drafted. And to see him kind of stick through it, battle through the hardships, and then get the moment that he had tonight where he was the lead dog for Portland in the win to even the series and give them real life, that's a really cool experience to see. So I'm really happy for Scoot Henderson. I thought that was just a really great performance, and then again, I'm never going to get upset watching Drew Holiday play playoff basketball. Even if he wasn't sensational at 6 of 17 from the floor, he's one of the guys where if you just loved the game, if you just love watching good quality basketball, 9 times out of 10, Drew Holiday in Portland, and it was that way when he was in Boston, it was that way when he was in Milwaukee, it was that way when he was in Philly, it was that way when he was in New Orleans, and every other damn team that he's played for. He's had a laundry list of teams, right? He's like kind of building out the Shaq rainbow, if you will, on his Pro Basketball Reference page with all the teams that he's played for. But watching Drew Holiday in the postseason, it's real cerebral basketball. And you don't see that a ton, right? It's the little things, the little details that he can really take advantage of, especially taking on a San Antonio team that without Victor Wembanyama, they're just a bunch of young dudes and De'Aaron Fox. I mean, that's really all that they are. When they don't have Wemby, and that's what makes this so interesting, not knowing what his status is going to be. When they don't have Victor Wembanyama, they're not all that impressive. It's very easy to be as impressive as they are when you have this 7-foot alien that can do everything and is going to be the face of the league for years and years to come. Decades plural, right? When you don't have him, what really are you? You don't have a sensational, amazing, one-of-a-kind head coach in Greg Popovich anymore. I like the head coach they got over there, but he's not Greg Popovich. And then you don't have superstars without Victor Wembanyama. De'Aaron Fox is a star, not a superstar, and the young guys are young. Castle, Harper, all these dudes, it's a bunch of young dudes on the roster that are seeing playoff basketball for the first time and like, whoa, this is really different. This is really interesting. Like, this is really weird. We have to be able to respond. And they weren't really doing that. So I'm fascinated by what this series is going to look like. We have a real series now, like a real series. And now we just kind of sit and we twiddle our thumbs and we wait. And you doom scroll on Twitter if you're a San Antonio fan. You doom scroll on Twitter if you're just an NBA fan, because I want to see Victor Wembanyama come back. Like, make no mistake about this. He is the story of the postseason. It's him. Like the Jokic and Anthony Edwards series in round number 1 is sick. LeBron and Durant in round number 1, the OGs battling it out. That's really, really cool. But the story is Victor Wembanyama. And as we sit here and wait, now I'm intrigued with the Spurs series. The Spurs in Portland, because if Wemby can't come back in 4 or 5 days, I don't know that he's coming back, period, because I don't know that they have enough firepower to be able to take down Portland. That's a crazy sentence to say out loud. But based off of what we saw tonight, it's an accurate sentence. You can't allow a 12-2 run being on the wrong side of it at home in a postseason game in game number 2. You can't do that. And that's what they ended up giving up here. So we will get more information this week on Victor Wembanyama. Again, he's been officially diagnosed with a concussion, so he is going to miss time. It's just a question of how much time is he going to miss, and then what is San Antonio going to be able to do in the absence of Victor Wembanyama. I also really enjoyed watching the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. Didn't think they had it in them without Joel Embiid. They take down the Boston Celtics. VJ Edgecombe, a guy that's becoming a burdening star in the NBA, was sensational tonight. He goes for a 30-burger on the Boston Celtics. And this one would worry me a little bit if I'm Boston, because it's not like you played exceptionally bad. Sometimes a team loses a game in a series and everything goes poorly. Both star players play awful. Bench plays awful. It's just one of those nights, right? It's just the game of basketball. It's why we play 7. Sometimes you're just going to have a night. That was not the case for Boston tonight. And on the flip side, it's not like this was a game for Philadelphia where they just had a one-of-a-kind night. Every 3 is going in. You're shooting 80% from the floor. This is just one of those nights that you're going to have once and you're never going to have again. It wasn't that. They were just a better team tonight. The Eastern Conference is now a lot more interesting. Atlanta beat New York. I didn't think they were going to have much of a fight against New York. They beat them last night, and now Philadelphia beats Boston without Joel Embiid. I mean, his status is still a question mark. I think we honestly might see Victor Wembanyama before we see Joel Embiid again. I don't care what any report says. I'm not going to believe that Embiid is playing until I see both feet planted on the floor with him in full uniform. Like, I need to see it to believe it when it comes to Joel Embiid, but that's now a real series because they have dudes over there in Philly. Kelly Oubre played well. Playoff P. Paul George, not a bad second or third option, right? When you're the number 1 option, run for the hills. Get ready for Cancun because you're going to be there. But when he's a second or a third option, he's a pretty good second or third option to have against a Boston team that really doesn't have like a genuine, legit second or third option. For Boston, you're looking at Derek White, or you're looking at the NBA's Caitlin Clark, Peyton Pritchard. Please tell me somebody got that joke. I hope you did. But that's your third for Boston. Paul George is better than either of those two guys. What is it going to look like when he's a fourth if Embiid does come back? There's real legs to that series that I think everybody needs to be paying attention to. If you're just tuning in, no Linnell Willingham tonight. He's under the weather. Hoping to have him back tomorrow. I'm Denton Day. I'm sitting in for Linnell Willingham here on a Westwood One Sports Night. This program is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressive.com. There's been a lot that has happened in the world of the NBA. We will get to that. I'll keep you updated on the Lakers and the Houston Rockets as well. But coming up, Mike Vrabel addressed the elephant in the room. Was it enough? I'll tell you next. Don't go anywhere. It's Westwood One Sports Night.
We're covering the NFL Draft unlike anyone else can. Reporting from Pittsburgh with exclusive first-round player interviews.
I saw my family and they started crying. I thought I was going to start flowing.
Happy Draft Week from your home of the NFL.
It was definitely surreal, something I dreamed of as a kid.
Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
It's Westwood One Sports Night. No Linnell Willingham tonight. Hope that he is going to be back tomorrow. Denton Day. You know me as D-Day if you listen to the show regularly. Sitting in for Linnell. You can connect with me on Twitter at @TheDentonDay. We got our talk and text line at 310-840-4910 available for you as well. You can chime in our YouTube chat. We're having a lot of fun with the YouTube chat. Just search Westwood One Sports Night and you will find us there. You get to see my face. I did makeup. Not actually, but the light does hit my face look good, hit my face well, and it looks like I got a tan, so that's something. It's a lot better than what's going on in New England, I can tell you that. However you want to grade my tan, it's a lot better than what's going on in New England. We knew that Mike Vrabel was going to need to address the Dianna Russini scandal at some point. It was more a question of when. Traditionally, coaches will speak during the lead-up and after the NFL draft. Kind of wasn't sure when they were going to send Vrabel out to the podium. This is a big deal. There's been PR crisis managers consulted. You never normally do that if it's not a big deal. So Mike Vrabel stepped to the microphone for the first time to speak about this publicly. I do before I play this, I want you to know that initially when the photos broke, he called this laughable. I feel like that's a very important point of context. He put out a statement when the initial article was dropped in the New York Post and said, this is laughable. We need to move past this. All right. So that was weeks ago. Listen to his statement. We're going to play it in its entirety. It's about 2 minutes. But listen to his statement with that in your mind, that he said this was laughable. So without further ado, here's Mike Vrabel from earlier this afternoon addressing the scandal that has now taken over the sports media world.
First begin by saying thank you. Thank you for your patience that you've shown in a personal and private matter for me and obviously everybody involved. I know that that's not easy for you, and I respect that, and I appreciate your efforts in doing so. I understand I could have, addressed you guys sooner, but it was important to me to have a conversation with the players, which I did yesterday, very candidly, as we began our off-season program, which everyone is excited to be a part of. Stacy had mentioned the players' availability, and it was never my intention to have them speak to you or address you before I did. And so I asked him to come today and to talk with you. I also don't want to take away from our, the draft, the weekend of the draft. This is an important time for us, our organization, and the excitement and the joy that those players are going to have that we bring onto our football team. They're starting an amazing journey, one that should be celebrated as we welcome them onto our team. With that being said, I've had some difficult conversations with people that I care about, with my family, the organization, the coaches, the players. Those have been positive and productive. We believe in order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me, that starts with me. We never want our actions to negatively affect the team. We never want to be the cause of a distraction those are comments and questions that I've answered for the team and with the team. We'll keep those private and to ourselves. Care deeply about this football team, and I'm excited to coach them. I also know that I'm going to attack each day with humility and focus. And what I can promise you is that my family, this organization, the team, the staff, the coaches, everybody, our fans, most importantly, will get the best version of me going forward. And that's what I know, and I'm excited to do that. But I wanted to just address this and thank you for your patience in dealing with the private and personal matter.
So you're going to decide for yourself, was that an admission of guilt, or was that him covering his bases? 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. I listened to that multiple times today, and I tried to piece together, how do I feel about this? Right? Because he didn't actually say, I'm sorry. He didn't apologize for anything. But in fairness, the stance with Mike Vrabel has always been that this isn't true. So you can't apologize for something if your stance is going to be, hey, I didn't do this, nothing happened. It sure looks like something happened. If we're just going to connect the dots and use common sense, which most of us have, you're going to put pieces together and say, well, something clearly happened. I'll tell you this, it would have been a whole lot easier if the photos had them kissing. Right? Like the handhold thing, it feels like kind of middle schoolish where we're judging, two people holding hands as, oh, they like each other, oh, they're in love and all these different things. It would have been really easy if we got a photo of them kissing because we're all adults here. We generally know that two adults kissing has one destination in mind. Well, it could be multiple destinations in mind if you're fun, but it has like one overarching destination in mind, right? And it's not something that you would be participating in if you were married to somebody else. So that would have just made life incredibly easy. But when I listened to Mike Vrabel, that did kind of feel like a guy saying, I did something that was very, very wrong, and I am going to make adjustments. What he said at the end of I'm going to attack every day with humility and coaching the team and all of these things, like that's kind of where it got me hook, line, and sinker of this is a dude saying that, my bad, y'all, I made a mistake. What you guys are saying is accurate. That's on me. I won't do that again. And it's also important to point out, like, nothing illegal happened, right? Morally, it's not very nice to be having an affair with somebody in the reporting business. From Dianna Russini's perspective, ethically, it shouldn't have happened the way that it did. But it's not like they did something massively illegal. They just made a mistake. It's also not lost on me that we are sitting a little less than a year ago, a little less than a year away, rather, from when Mike Vrabel first dropped some of the things that he said. If you listen back to that entire thing and then go back and listen to his press conference the first time he was made available after Stephon Diggs got on a boat with a bag full of some powder. There was some white stuff in there that I don't think was salt or sugar. There was some pink stuff in there that I'm pretty positive wasn't Himalayan sea salt. He got up there and said a lot of the things that he just said about himself, which is we need to make smart decisions. We need to not take away the focus from our team and put it on ourselves for being dumb in the public light. He said all of those things when describing Stephon Diggs on a boat with a bunch of women and allegedly some drugs. Well, now he's saying all of that same stuff about him. Like we got common sense here. We can connect the dots a little bit and say, well, if you're saying that when he made a mistake and did something he shouldn't have done, what you're effectively saying is that you have made a mistake and you have done something you shouldn't have done. And in the year 2026, it's not a mistake to hang out with people that are of the opposite sex. You can have friends that are women. That's very, very plausible. What you can't do is have a fun time with them at a hotel where nobody else is there. And then one of you may or may not have said it was a girls' trip and then could not provide any evidence of it being a girls' trip. That's where this becomes a problem. I also feel a little bit for Dianna Russini because her final statement on this entire thing as she resigned from The Athletic was, I'm not going to give any more credence to this. I'm not going to play in to this any longer. And then Mike Vrabel had to come and play into this significantly longer. We're seeing something unfold, by the way. They should have known this was going to come. They should have known this was going to come. And maybe they did. When we first got news, like actual news about the Dianna Russini resignation, where we got insight on what was going on behind closed doors. And it was the first time, I believe, where anybody put out that a PR crisis management team was consulted, right? There was this article that was put out by ESPN, I believe it was Benjamin Strauss, that put it out. He put this article out, and he said that Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel consulted one another, and then there was also a PR crisis management team that was involved from the Russini side of things when it comes to the Athletic and just kind of figuring that situation out. How can we get out of this? They knew about the article, which is pretty customary in these sorts of things. Usually, if someone's going to drop an article on you, they're going to give you a heads up in the event where you can disprove it, which is what the New York Post did. They said, hey, you're saying this is a girls' trip. If you can prove it was a girls' trip, or if Mike Vrabel can prove that you guys were hanging out with friends, we will nix this thing in totality. And they could not do that. But when you start to put these sorts of things together and you get a PR crisis firm involved, my guess is that Mike Vrabel had maybe a different PR crisis firm involved. And I think that Dianna Russini today and Mike Vrabel today is coming to the realization that in this process, they are not a team. I don't think that Mike Vrabel threw Dianna Russini under the bus, but that felt like an apology, whereas her last statement was not an apology. And the problem with consulting a PR crisis management firm, especially if you two have two different PR crisis management firms, or if because the NFL is like this weird family bit, right? And Robert Kraft is going to ride for Mike Vrabel. I mean, they just went to the Super Bowl last year. He ain't losing his job for this. So they're going to pull every stop necessary, which, by the way, Robert Kraft has a history of doing, right? Because we know what he does at massage parlors, and he ain't lose his job. So eventually what you're going to do is be like, hey, you're not on a team with them. If you just kind of separate yourself from them and if you start to take control of the narrative, it's going to be better in the long run. That might hurt them on the other side, but they're not family, right? Clearly. I mean, maybe they're trying to be, but they're clearly not family. They're two people that made decisions that might have impacted family, but also, like, you're not having a hard discussion with your family the way that Mike Vrabel said if you were just two platonic friends at a resort that were holding hands. Because I always kind of thought in the beginning of this that, well, maybe they're family friends and maybe the families actually know one another. And, if you are a family friend, it maybe isn't the craziest thing in the world to see two people holding hands if you know how they are personally, right? There's an avenue for that. I've always also wanted to try and be the guy that actually, follows through with the innocent until proven guilty, that a principle that it feels like this country was founded on. Man, they making it tough. They are making it tough. I want your thoughts on this, though, after hearing the Mike Vrabel statement. I'm not calling it an apology because he didn't officially apologize, but in hearing the Mike Vrabel statement, how do you feel about the situation? Does it impact the way that you previously felt? 310-840-4910. That's a talk or a text line. We have a YouTube comment section as well. Search Westwood One Sports Night on YouTube. You can come hang out in the comments section. Just beware. Sometimes it gets a little raunchy. We're a late night talk show, right? We have some fun in the comments section. You can tweet me as well at the Denton Day. What was your biggest takeaway from what you heard from Mike Vrabel in that 2.5-minute soliloquy, the word salad, of him apologizing or addressing this for the first time in front of a microphone? We'll get to some of your texts. We'll get to some of your calls when we get back. It's Westwood One Sports Night, Denton Day, sitting in for Linnell Willingham on a Tuesday here on Westwood One Sports.
Westwood One! The NFL Draft is upon us. We'll have live picks from the podium, instant reaction, exclusive player interviews. Bet MGM tonight with Pat Boyle and Brad Evans. Coverage starting at 6 Eastern, Thursday, from your official home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
We got a fun one in Los Angeles. Rockets and Lakers, 3-point game with just a few minutes left. 2:50 in the first half. LeBron has been hooping. Kevin Durant has been hooping. And, like, man, smack my veins, inject this into it. Seeing these two guys go back and forth, go bucket for bucket, it's like nostalgic almost. It reminds me of when I was a child watching these guys play basketball. So I am loving every second of this. We'll continue to keep you updated throughout the course of this game and have instant reactions when it does end up going final. Our conversation point as we sit here now, though, on Westwood One Sports Night with Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham. Linnell going to be back tomorrow, a little under the weather. We're talking about Mike Vrabel and his announcement, if you will, his acknowledgement of the scenario and the situation between himself and Dianna Russini that has captivated the masses for the past few weeks, because we seemingly caught a sitting head coach and a lead reporter at a major news institution holding hands and doing things that are unseeming of those of people that are in marriages, right? So that's our point of discussion. We played the full thing for you, and now it's your turn to weigh in. 310-840-4910. That's a talk or text line. You want to jump in, we are more than welcome to do so. We're also on the YouTube chat, Westwood One Sports Night. You can tweet me at the Denton Day. But we're going to go out to the phones. We're going to go to my neck of the woods, Arlington, Virginia. That's where we find Robbie wants to weigh in here. Robbie, what's going on, man? You're on Westwood One Sports Night.
What's going on, dude? I just find it funny. He didn't say anything in the press conference. That's the craziest part. I feel like he just said, I had a tough talk with my family. That means nothing. That says nothing. That, we all have tough talks with our family. Doesn't mean we cheated on our wife. Doesn't mean it's not acknowledging anything. And as for Dianna, I think people are trying to say, there's the sexism card, but she's an insider. Her job is to find out stuff that people do what she did. So it's kind of a little controversial. Like, I'm not trying to say people should lose their job. Mike Vrabel's obviously not. He's a football coach. But he said nothing. And nobody's going to give her info when it's kind of a weird, I don't know. When you're an insider and your job is to find scoops on people, and people find a scoop on you, it's kind of a tough look.
It is a tough look, Robbie. I appreciate the call. It is a tough look. It's kind of like, I guess, a double-edged sword, or you're finally getting comeuppance, if you will. I don't even feel like it's that, though. I mean, this feels like a hired hit. So, like, somebody knew this was happening, because why else are you just hanging out at a resort? Like, no one casually walked past the resort and said, oh, is that Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel? Like, this was clearly a setup. I just don't know who was the person setting it up. Like, was it someone that was involved? Was it a spouse of one of these two individuals? Was it somebody that was maybe wanted the job of Dianna Russini? Like, this field is very competitive, especially as big conglomerates start to cut and take jobs away. It's very tough to stay working in the field of sports media. And when your job is getting scoops and you take a big fish out of a relatively small pond, it does make it a little easier. So, like, I'm fully aware that this was a setup by somebody. I actually am way more interested in who it was the setup by, right? Because since this story came out, you found like a lot of really odd tweets and really odd media appearances from Dianna Russini talking about her husband in a way that is, at the time, it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. It just felt like she was poking fun at her husband. But now, given everything that we know, it's like, oh, hey, that's a little odd. Why would you be saying that during this process? I agree, though, that Mike Vrabel didn't really say anything. He just said he had a hard, productive conversation. I have no idea what that means. It's very vague. I'd actually be dying to be a fly on the wall in the facility when he made the comments or he spoke to the team for the first time since all of this going on. I would imagine he might have texted a few players here and there about the situation. I'm sure they texted him to check up on him a little bit, but addressing your team, again, less than a year after you said very similar things about a player that was on the team and Stephon Diggs, but also kind of understanding how that one you kind of had to say a lot of things about Stephon Diggs throughout the course of the season because of the way his season played out off of the field. So to constantly be preaching the message of we need to be smart off of the field, we should not be dumb, we should not make decisions that are going to take away from what we are doing on the field in what ended up being a Super Bowl run, to say all of those things in 2025 and the very beginning of 2026, and then like a week before the draft have to say all of those same things about yourself, there is a great sense of irony in that. It's impossible to deny. 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. Bert is in Baltimore, wants to weigh in. Bert, you're on Westwood One Sports Night with Denton Day. How are you?
What's up, D-Day? How are you?
I'm good, man.
Hey, I got to tell you, I think you typically are working the wrong side of the mic, brother. I love it when you host, man.
I appreciate it.
You are fantastic. By the way, what time did Linnell call out today? Because for the last week, I've had to listen to him go on and on about Wembanyama, and he does things we've never seen before. I've never seen a 7-foot. I've never seen any basketball player give himself a concussion while doing a spin move. Can you tell him that the next time you see him?
He might be listening right now, so I will. I'll let him know. I also have not seen that before.
I told, with regard to your question, I told I need to check myself real quick, because with the same humility that Coach went to the mic with, I told Linnell that I've been guilty of a similar infraction not long ago, and I actually think he said plenty. I think he said exactly what we all thought, which is he made a bad decision. He's in hot water at home. He's taken the focus off of the team, caused a distraction. He recognizes the irony in all of it, feels like a heel, and wants to quietly go about doing his job, and will focus on doing that to the best of his ability. That's exactly what I got from his press conference today.
Bert, I appreciate it. I do think the end of that was more like pandering to the ownership group and the people in charge than it was to the media, because, like, why? If I'm a media and I asked you that question, which nobody asked this particular question, that was the statement that he gave, and then it was basically, hey, I'm not talking about this any longer, which is fair. You're not going to have the entire press conference be about that, especially when the press conference is supposed to be talking about your team in the lead up to the draft, right? You're eventually going to have to put this thing to bed. But it did feel like the end of that was more so to the ownership group and to the people that he had conversations with throughout this process behind closed doors. Because why? If you're a fan, do you really care about him attacking every day with humility? That's one of the things that I'm very interested in from a fan's perspective. I am a fan of the Commanders. I have been a fan while the owner was doing a bunch of these sorts of things, but I hated the owner. I desperately wanted to see the owner get his ass up out of town and run to Europe the way that he did. I do wonder, if you're a fan, do you actually care about this? Or are you just like, all right, he was having an affair with someone that is objectively attractive. Good for Coach. We got to go make this run in 2026. It does feel like to me that these are oftentimes how you kind of derail seasons. It's the stupid stuff, right? You're transitioning from one year to another year. You got to get Drake May. You got to get him one step better, right? You got to have him competent. You got to have your offensive line play better, because they were turnstiles during the Super Bowl. You got to have better weapons on offense. There's so many things that you need to be focusing on in the lead up to 2026 to just win one more game. I just want to be the one standing on the podium, and it's usually the stupid things that cost them, like getting caught with an NFL insider holding hands and potentially having an affair the way that Mike Vrabel did. I'm going to be curious as to how this does impact their season, because I do think he's going to get asked about it a lot more as we learn more information about it, because we will learn more information, and God help both of these two people. I don't wish the separation of a marriage on anybody. It doesn't seem like a fun experience. But if one of these marriages does collapse and that form hits Twitter, oh my God in heaven, it is going to be a bloodbath It is going to be a bloodbath. And you can bet that if Mike Vrabel, if Dianna Russini goes through a tough time, right, and it ends poorly, he is going to be asked about that nonstop. It's going to be like week 8. They just had a nice win over whoever the hell they're end up playing in week 8, and he's going to get asked nonstop about that. Like, that's one of the things. You set yourself up for this to constantly be a story. I hope that their marriages survive this. Seeing as that this was clearly a hit job by somebody, I would guess that that's not going to happen. But I hope that it does. If it doesn't, this is going to be a nonstop story for New England, and the players are eventually going to get asked about it too. The first time that Drake May's in front of a microphone, I guarantee he's going to get asked about this. And the NFL, not a shot, I promise, but this isn't the WNBA. Like, you can't just skate around certain topics. You're going to have to be asked about these sorts of things. That's what the job is as media. That's also kind of the agreement that you have with the NFL and the media, is that you have to get asked about these certain things. I hope Drake May took media training. I hope all these players on the Patriots took media training, because they're going to get asked about this. Just very, very fascinating to see it play out, right? I imagine that Vrabel's going to get asked about it after the draft too, but that's just me. It's Denton Day on Westwood One Sports Night, sitting in for Linnell Willingham, who is traditionally in on a Tuesday. He's a little under the weather. He did call out before Victor Wembanyama spun and then smacked his head on the basketball floor. That has become the big story of the evening, though, is that Victor Wembanyama has a concussion, right? He was the superstar of the postseason as we entered the postseason, or he was going to be, because everybody wanted to see what was it going to look like with Victor Wembanyama playing in the postseason for the first time. So then in game number 2, to see him fall the way that he did, to smack his head off of the floor the way that he did, it's a dangerous thing. It's a scary thing. Brains are weird, man. Like, you have no idea how a particular person is going to respond to a concussion, right? You and I might have the same timetable for another minor injury. Separated AC joint, we might have the same timetable. With a concussion, like, he could be back in 3 days. He could not come back for the rest of the year. It's just a really, really crazy thing. So we'll continue to update you this week as we get more information. But all we know now officially is that Victor Wembanyama has a concussion. And to Bert's point that he brought up on the phone, I have never seen a human being fall that way. Like, never. Not in the NBA, not at high school level basketball, not at college level basketball. Many of you don't know this, because why would you? But my first official job in life was a referee. I refereed elementary school basketball. I haven't seen clumsy-ass fourth graders fall the way that Victor Wembanyama did. Just no bracing with the hands, head smack off of the ground. It was tough, man. It was a tough thing to watch. So hoping that he ends up being all right, but that's something that we're going to have to see over the next couple of days. It's going to be a very, very important thing. Speaking of important things, the most important decision in franchise history is looming for the Warriors. I'll tell you what it is next. Don't go anywhere.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham on a Tuesday, now Wednesday, on the East Coast. You can connect with me on Twitter at the Denton Day. Our talk and text line is open, 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. For the first time in well over a decade, the Golden State Warriors have a massive, critical, franchise-changing decision that they are going to have to make, and they're likely going to make it by the end of the week. Reports are coming out that Steve Kerr could be on his way out. It's not official yet, but the signs are pointing to Steve Kerr being on the way out. The decision that Golden State now has to make as an operation is, do they want to blow this entire thing up? Or do they still think their current establishment, their current group, has enough legs to compete with the likes of OKC, with San Antonio when Victor Wembanyama is healthy, and all of the other giants in the Western Conference? What I'm really saying is they got to decide how much legs that Steph has left in the organization, because everything is going to be centered around him until he's not there anymore. And it's a very weird thing to say out loud that they could potentially look to move on from Steph Curry, But that is the reality of where they are. Now, I wouldn't do that. Steph is still a top player in the league, a top 10 player in the league. But if you look at just a numbers game here, right? And the numbers I'm talking about are the numbers that the Golden State Warriors front office actually cares about. I'm talking about money, baby. The Golden State Warriors in 2026, next year, the 26-27 season, they're currently scheduled to be $113 million over the salary cap. Steph is on track to get $62 million next year. Jimmy Butler is on the hook for $56 million next year. There's going to be some real decisions that end up being made, especially with Steve Kerr moving. It's a lot easier in these sorts of scenarios, instead of allowing things to fall apart slowly, is to just take a stick of dynamite into that bad boy, plant it, and then blow it all up. Blow it to smithereens. Think of what you could get back for Steph Curry if you put him on the open market. You're telling me teams out here, still a top 10 player. We saw teams trade 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. We saw teams trade 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, who's still arguing his case for Defensive Player of the Year, by the way, over Victor Wembanyama. My guy, watch the games. Wemby's a freak. But if they got 5 first-round picks, what possibly would Steph Curry go for? I mean, you're getting kidneys in return for this, right? Like, what is better than a first-round pick? You're getting stock in other organizations if you end up making that move. I don't think that they will, but if you are a smart operation, you at least have to allow that possibility to enter the brain. It's going to quickly exit the brain, but to enter the brain. Jimmy Butler, I don't think, is as lucky. They were trying to move off of him, it felt like, in the lead up to the trade deadline. Then he got hurt. And he got hurt in a way where he's going to be out into the offseason, into potentially next year, depending on what the rehab looks like because of the lower body injury. You got to figure out what you're doing with Draymond Green. Here's what I know for a fact. In whatever happens with Steve Kerr, I know Steph Curry still wants to play basketball. And that does mess things up a little bit because he's played in your organization for almost 20 years. He's been one of the best players of a generation. I'd say number 2 compared to LeBron's number 1 of this generation. He's influenced this new modern style of basketball. It's very difficult to decide whether or not you want to move off of that. But here's what Steph Curry said when asked about the potential of retirement. Here's what he said after a play-in game just a few days ago.
Still see him multiple years as beyond left in the career. Multiple, for sure. That's more than one. Yes, that's perfect. Would you be interested in an extension? For sure. But none of those conversations have happened, so it'll be a busy summer for the Warriors.
He's putting the pressure on them. I remember hearing that, and then I had to go back in the memory. I got a big head. So there's a lot of memory vaults that I got to go back in. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I don't know that I've ever heard Steph Curry say something that isn't the most uber positive about his organization. In all of the roller coaster type moments that they have had, literally just like the past 6 years with Draymond Green, I mean, punching Jordan Poole, the Kevin Durant situation, the departure of Klay Thomas, the departure of Mark Jackson, and the hiring of Steve Kerr, even going so far back as with the Monte Ellis stuff back in the day when he was drafted and we didn't know that he was going to be the player that he was because his ankles kept giving him issues. I don't think I've ever heard Steph Curry say something that was not uberly positive about his own organization. But what he said just there is, I got years left in me. It's up to them to decide whether those years are going to be here. And if you pay attention to contracts in the NBA, the numbers are just gargantuan. I mean, Steph is on the final year of his current deal, and he's going to get $62 million. If you sign him to an extension, you're signing him to an extension of multiple years, and all of those years are going to be higher than $62 million. Because at the base level, if you're going to sign a guy to an extension, you got to give him more money. You're giving him more years, you're giving him more money. And with dudes getting $70 million across the league that even now aren't nearly as good as Steph Curry, he's going to look at them and say, I would like my cut of close to $70 million, please. And then as an organization, you got to decide, do we really want to do that? For me, the answer is yes. Like, I'm keeping Steph Curry. I am making sure that Steph Curry is going to retire as a Golden State Warrior. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Everybody else, though, you got to rearrange some things. But you also, if you're going to keep Steph Curry, it's this very weird line that Golden State has to walk, where they need to keep Steph Curry happy, but they're paying out the ass right now. $113 million over the salary cap. They have a second apron space of like $40 million. Their cap allocations in 2026 and 27 are $278 million. That's a gargantuan amount of money to play for a team that was in the play-in. So you have to then pay Steph Curry more money, and you could format it with the cap to maybe take the cap hit down the way that NFL teams do. But that means you have to have some of this money liquid, which they should, by the way, because Steph Curry, I'm not going to say that Steph Curry has single-handedly, because we know that the Splash Brothers and Draymond, and even to an extent Steve Kerr and Kevin Durant, they've all been a part of this, but they took the Warriors and they have positioned them as arguably, I think their number is the fourth most important organization financially in American sports from a wealth perspective, or value. That's what I'm looking for, the word value. The last time Forbes did one of these lists, it was the Cowboys, it was the Lakers at 2, I think the Yankees at 3, and then like the Golden State Warriors were 4. They were worth nearly $10 billion, and this was before like the Celtics and the Lakers ended up selling for that $10 billion mark, which means that they have probably escalated that. But a large part of that is because of Steph Curry, right? So you need to keep him in your operation. He should never wear another uniform. Tim Duncan never wore another uniform outside of San Antonio. Kobe Bryant never wore another uniform. Thought about it, but never wore another uniform. Same thing with Dirk. Like, Steph needs to be one of those guys. It's very rare, especially in today's NBA, where guys like Durant have played for this rainbow amount of teams. For James Harden has a rainbow on his basketball reference page with all of the jerseys of teams that he has played for. The same thing with Russell Westbrook. Even to an extent, the same thing with LeBron James. Not as big of a rainbow, but he's played for so many different teams. You have an opportunity with Steph to keep him there, but then who do you hire? And how much influence does Steph Curry have on the next head coach? He hasn't really played for a lot of head coaches. I'm sure he knows a bunch of really good coaches. But I get very weary about asking players about who they want to hire as head coaches, because a lot of players really like Mike Brown. And we spent a lot of time yesterday not saying the nicest things about Mike Brown. Time out to be damned. Mike Brown's a good coach, not a great coach, right? So, like, do you trust Steph Curry in his coaching assessment enough to say, hey, we're going to make sure that you have a say in who the next head coach is? Who do you want that to be? And then who are the good options that are going to be out there to continue and potentially give this legacy? It's, shall we say, it's like Spurs' second leg. Remember when they got Kawhi Leonard and all of a sudden they were competing for championships in the final years of Tim Duncan? How can we give ourselves as an operation that? And with Steve Kerr likely out, and this has been reported by a number of different people, Mark Spears of ESPN has reported, he's reported some insight as to some of the reasons, which I'll get to in a second, as to why Steve Kerr could be leaving. It was Monte Poole, who works in the market in San Francisco, that first tweeted it today, that said, hey, there's a pretty good chance that Steve Kerr is not going to be there. It's also something that Draymond Green has addressed on his podcast, which is a sentence that I love to say out loud. But here's what Draymond said about the potential of Steve Kerr likely not being the Warriors head coach next year.
I've never been so uncertain since early in my career on what happens next, but I'm truly at a loss now because you just don't know what direction will be what. Steph, myself, Steve shared a moment in what could be our last time playing with Steve as our coach. I'm happy we got to share that moment, and like, he didn't miss the moment. It was a big deal. I hope he's our coach next year. You want my opinion? And I think not. Just because it just feels like that. It felt like that was it. I also hope I'm on this team next year. We also don't know that. And man, if it was, what a run it's been. So lucky to have had for 12 years Steve as my coach. We shall see. I don't know. Just got to stay ready for whatever it is and roll with the punches.
I am very glad that Draymond Green added in there that I don't even know if I'm going to be back next year. I would think that Draymond Green is not back next year. So whatever we see with Golden State, with Steph and a new head coach, it's going to be drastically different. I don't know that Jimmy Butler is going to be back next year. It's very difficult to move off of a guy coming off of an injury, especially when he's on deck for $56 million, which I cannot stress enough. Jimmy Butler is going to get $56 million in 2026 and 2027. Good player, but $56 million is gargantuan. Now, the nice thing is that's the final year of his deal. So if you're looking to get that money off the books, you could send him to a team that is maybe trying to tank. Hey, just take this contract. He's probably not going to play a lot this year. You can come to some sort of agreement with him. Hey, you're not going to play here. We just need to get this money off the books. And then you can give yourself some sort of ammunition to go get Giannis. Because if nothing else, if Golden State is going to revamp this operation, they need to go and get Giannis. You get Steph, you get Giannis. Tell Giannis for like 3 years, hey, this idea that you want to be this like awesome, loved, beloved hero, we're going to erect a statue here, put that on hold for 3 years, right? Durant kind of wanted that in Golden State, and it was very clear, no, this is Steph's town. Put that on hold for like 3 years. In a post-Steph world, maybe you'll be that, but go get Giannis and then get Steph. And then depending on what happens with this Lakers-Rockets series and what happens with the Lakers in the postseason, you make a call on the Rich Paul phone, not the bat phone, the Rich Paul phone, and say, LeBron, it's time, right? We know the relationship in Los Angeles is not very good right now. Let's just make for one final year, because I think next year is LeBron's last year, which, by the way, I'm fully expecting LeBron James to play in the 2026-2027 season. I am maybe in the minority, but I also believe that LeBron James deserves and should just pimp the hell out of a retirement tour. I like retirement tours. Sorry. But I'm calling him up and I'm saying, hey, come play with us. And then you get Steph, you get Giannis, you get LeBron, you get a bunch of younger dudes on there too, but you get those three guys and you take one final swing at this thing with a coach that you trust and maybe somebody that LeBron likes, because we know his history with head coaches is not the nicest in the world. But you go with those three and just see what happens. If nothing else, we as fans get the thrill of seeing LeBron and Steph play on the NBA floor together. But if you're going to make massive operational changes, that's the direction I'm going. Maybe Kawhi Leonard too. I don't think he's going to be in Los Angeles much longer. They need a punt on that whole thing. I just don't know how many trees need to be planted in the Golden State, Oakland, San Francisco area. I don't know what the tree population is like over there. I know the weed population might be all right, but the trees, like actual trees, I don't know. And Kawhi Leonard loves getting paid to plant trees. He doesn't actually plant trees, allegedly, according to Pablo Torre at least. But that's what I'm doing if I'm Golden State. If the Kerr thing is going to end, I'm just saying, F it. We're going to make one big swing and just see what happens. You're going to get butts and seats because it's going to be Giannis, LeBron, and Steph. I'm selling the farm to get Giannis, by the way. Whatever they need, I will gladly give them to get Giannis. He's going to be the future after Steph Curry. And then let's just give it a shot, man. Let's just see what's going to happen. The worst thing that's going to happen is we make a whole lot of money in the process, right? The best thing that's going to happen is we make a whole lot of money in the process and we win a championship, which in turn makes us a whole lot of money, and it kind of justifies this insane luxury tax spending that we've been doing for now a decade. Because they've been doing it with the Splash Bros, with Durant, and now they're doing it with Jimmy Butler and Draymond and all these guys. So it's going to be interesting to see how this actually ends up playing out. Again, we still don't know officially if Steve Kerr is going to be gone. Maybe he has a change of heart. Maybe the operation has a change of heart. Though I will say this. One of the reports that came out as to why Steve Kerr could be done was from Mark Spears, who addressed a little bit of friction in the press conferences that Steve Kerr likes to do. And what I mean by that is sometimes he likes to get off of the beaten path, and he doesn't really want to talk about pick and rolls for a day. He wants to talk about some sort of injustice that has taken place in the world, in the country, wherever, right? He's not shy about those sorts of things. And to be fair, I don't necessarily mind when coaches go on those sort of diatribes. I just have a very different feel for like a Steve Kerr versus a Greg Popovich, because at least Steve Kerr answers basketball questions. I have no issue if you're going to answer basketball questions, but also are passionate about things outside of basketball. I hated when Greg Popovich did it, because he would look at you like an idiot when he then ask a basketball question. I'm like, hey, like, you can do both things here. Like, we're here at a press conference for basketball. If you want to give your thoughts on what's happening in the world, perfectly fine. But if I ask you about pick and rolls, please don't look at me like I'm a three-headed alien. Steve Kerr, I thought, had a nice blend of that. But according to Mark Spears, there might be some sort of, hey, we don't like that anymore in Golden State. And that could be one of the reasons why it is leading to Steve Kerr departing. There is also just the very obvious, hey, it's been like 15 years. And do you still want to do this? We might want to go a different way. Let's end this thing amicably rather than making a big fuss and a big hoopla out of it. Didn't work this year. You've done so much good here. We'll send you off on a good note. We're going to praise you as the legend that you are here. We're going to end things where everybody is happy. We could sing Kumbaya in a couple of years when you get inducted into the Hall of Fame as a head coach, and everyone will be happy, right? So I think it's going to be more of that than like this weird blow-up situation. I would also point out that Ramona Shelburne reported that Steph and the Warriors are going to talk about an extension. So they're going to talk about an extension. Again, I think they're going to sign him to a big extension, but if you did want a get-out-of-big-time money free card, now would be the time to potentially, if you're going to blow it up, just to blow the thing up. Now, the Steve Kerr potential job opening does have a lot of other implications. And coming up, I'm going to tell you how that departure of Steve Kerr could lead to a massive coaching return in 2026. It's Denton Day, Westwood One Sports. Don't go anywhere.
The Cowboys have 2 first-round picks, and the entire draft is watching. Stay put or move up. Every Dallas decision reshapes the board. The NFL Draft starts 8 Eastern, Thursday, from your home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
Into the second half, Rockets-Lakers. The Lakers got a 9-point lead. Every time the Rockets feel like they're getting close, the Lakers then find a way to say, no, you're not that close anymore. It's Westwood One Sports Night. Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham. He will be back tomorrow. It'll be him and Josh Graham in the lead up to the NFL draft, which our draft coverage, you guys should be excited coming up on Thursday. Bleck and Abdallah, the midday show, they're going to be in Pittsburgh, and they're going to be talking to the draftees, all the people that are there and getting drafted in the green room. I don't think we'll see a crazy slide. Maybe we do. But anyone that's getting drafted, they're going to be on location and speaking with almost immediately. We're going to air all those conversations on Thursday night's show. So it's going to be a blast. I love the NFL draft. Hopefully you love the NFL draft. It's going to be a really awesome show coming up on Thursday and potentially on Friday as well. Westwood One's draft coverage is it's top tier, baby. So I can't wait. I do have some draft stuff that we're going to get to later on in the program. You can connect with me on Twitter at The Denton Day. We got our talk and text line available as well, 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. Let's squeeze a quick one in. It wouldn't be right if I didn't get to Mr. Positive. So, Mr. Positive, welcome to the show, my friend. I hope you're well. How are you?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, D-Day. Boom shakalaka, everybody, go for your dreams. Hey, I want to talk about the Lakers real quick. I know they're not going to go far, but if they can win in the first round with a 41-year-old LeBron James, then they do pretty good, and they maybe have some hope with, Luka coming back and AR, maybe coming back. Maybe they can go a little bit further, but, oh, my God, it's such a great thing to see that LeBron is still playing with the exuberance and skill that he has at 41. It's just a great thing. And real quick, D-Day, everyone's crying here in Detroit about the Detroit Pistons, but I got to tell you, maybe they can pull it out, but, like I said last night, they're not going to go far. It's just very sad that, we just need another baller shot caller, like I said to Linnell last night, that Kate can't do it at all. And Duran's got to pick it up, and, do they do you think the Pistons have a chance in any way, shape, or form?
No, I do not. Mr. Positive, I appreciate it. And I apologize for being negative on the way out, but no, I do not. I really like Cade Cunningham as a player. I hate high-volume shooters in the postseason. It's why you will never have me or hear me select a Donovan Mitchell-led team to make a run, a James Harden-led team to make a run. They're good players. They're fun players to watch. But if you're a high-volume shooter, the way that Cade Cunningham is sort of turning into in Detroit, when you get into a 7-game series, it becomes miserable on offense. And that is exactly how I would describe game one offensively for the Pistons. Cunningham got his, but it felt like it was miserable for everybody else. You need to be way more efficient with the shooting of the basketball. And until you get to that point, I don't know that most guys can learn it, if I'm being honest. Like, it almost feels like you're either a high-volume shooter or you're not. Like, Donovan Mitchell still kind of feels that way sometimes. James Harden, even though he's now option number 2, ironically, to Donovan Mitchell, he kind of feels that way sometimes. But I am always, always, always anti-high-volume shooter in the postseason. I'll never forget when Kobe was doing, I think Kobe Bryant was doing a sit-down interview with Tracy McGrady as a part of ESPN's The Jump back in the day. And Tracy asked him, this was around the time where James Harden was competing for MVPs on a year-in, year-out basis and was generally viewed as one of the 5 best players in the NBA. And Tracy McGrady looked at Kobe Bryant and said, do you think James Harden can win playing this style? And Kobe said no. And it wasn't like the no in a way where sometimes the older generation comes and poo-poos on the younger generation. Like, Kobe had just retired. He'd played James Harden. It was no, you can't win with that style of basketball. And it was this like hilarious thing because Kobe was known for one thing in his career, well, many things, but one of the things he was known for the most was the fact that he shot a lot of shots. But in that second run with Pau Gasol and Ron Artest, Metta World Peace, whatever the hell you want to call them, he had gotten really good at getting his teammates involved. So I've always went back to that clip. It's from like 2016, 2017, something like that. But I've always went back to that clip and just found it the most hilarious thing. And unfortunately, it does feel like Cade Cunningham is finding himself in more of that lane than your guys that can shoulder the load and lead you to a championship. I just don't know that he has it. Maybe he becomes a non-volume, high-volume shooter. But generally speaking, when you start as a high-volume shooter, that is not something that you grow out of. It's Westwood One Sports Night. Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Wellingham on now a Wednesday morning edition of the program. You can connect with me on Twitter at the Denton Day. 310-840-4910 is our talk and text line. We'll read some of your text messages, take some of your calls. We got our YouTube chat that's going hard right now. Just search Westwood One Sports Night on YouTube. We're on the climb to 1,500 subscribers. So you got to help us get there. Just search us on YouTube and subscribe to us. We got all sorts of content coming from the shows. You get our live show each and every night and on the weekends as well, because both Linnell and Josh work on the weekends. So you get literally content 7 days a week and then quite literally twice on Sunday and twice on Saturday. I need to pay off the tease because I don't have a conspiracy character on the show. Josh has conspiracy Josh. I don't have conspiracy Denton because I just exist as a conspiracy, it feels like, for most of my life. And I came up with this conspiracy that's so good that I actually don't think it's a conspiracy. And it's how Billy Donovan lands at Florida. Billy Donovan parted ways with Chicago. They wanted to keep him, and he essentially said, this operation is not being run like adults or by adults, and I need to leave. So they said, we want to give you money. And he said, I don't want your damn money. So here's how Billy Donovan could potentially get to Florida. It involves Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr leaving Golden State opens up what is going to be one of the most highly sought-after jobs in the association that we have seen in years, because you get the opportunity to coach Steph Curry. And from all that we have heard over 17 years of Steph Curry's career is that life is really good when you get to coach Steph Curry. He's a really easy guy to coach, and you want to be there, right? So when Steve Kerr steps down, it's going to be an arms race for that job. Everyone is going to be in consideration, and I think a lot of people that you traditionally wouldn't think would be interested are going to end up being interested. Almost everybody in the NBA, even potentially in Eric Spoelstra, I think will at least pick up the phone and say, I am interested in what is going on in Golden State. But in the lead up to the report that we got today from Monte Poole saying that Steve Kerr is likely done, we got a report yesterday saying that if Steve Kerr is done, this was less definitive, but if Steve Kerr is done, one of the top candidates for that job is not going to be a guy that coaches at the NBA level. It's going to be the current sitting head coach of the Florida Gators, Todd Golden, who has a relationship with the ownership group in Golden State because Todd Golden, prior to taking the Florida job in 2022, coached at San Francisco. So right in the neighborhood of where Golden State plays basketball. You add on to the fact that he's a guy that's in his 30s. So theoretically, if you hire a guy that's in his 30s and it goes well, you got your coach for the next 15, 20 years. Kind of similar to what Steve Kerr did. He was a little bit older, obviously. But Steve Kerr has been a staple of that operation now for almost a full 15 years. I mentioned the name Eric Spoelstra. He's been the same way in Miami. He's been a staple of that organization for the better part of now 20 years, right? Like he took over when that Dwayne Wade championship year or around that general time, and he has been with the organization ever since. You have an opportunity to go get a guy that you know can coach at a high level in Todd Golden and say, we want to keep you here for 15 to 20 years if you do the job the way that we think you can do the job. And we are going to spend, we're going to get you players. You don't have to worry about some of the college things, about free agency every year. You're not going to have to re-recruit your players. You're going to know all your guys. It's going to be a really fun ride. Come coach for us. And because the Golden State Warriors job is such a massive job, and because Steph Curry is Steph Curry, and he still clearly is a top 10 player in the NBA, and he said he has multiple years left. If Steph Curry is saying, I got multiple years left, those years are going to be good, man. He's not a freak athlete. He's a shooter, and you can prolong a career as a shooter for as long as humanly possible, and Steph is the best that we've ever seen do it. So you're getting at least 2 to 3 to maybe 4 years with Steph Curry. That's pretty appealing if I'm Todd Golden. So Golden, in my fantasy scenario, is going to take that job. Now, what's interesting is that I had heard something today. I was listening to a show. I don't know if it was a show or a podcast, whatever it was. And they said that maybe Billy Donovan's actually interested in Orlando. We know that they hate their head coach. We've had reports for days, weeks now, that as soon as their season is done, a star player said, it's either me or the coach, and they are going to side with the player. They're going to say, all right, I think the player is Paolo Banchero. Don't know that for a fact. I would think the player is Paolo Banchero because, quite honestly, I don't really know how many guys on the Magic roster you would consider to be superstars. Even if it's Franz Wagner, I don't know that I call it. He's a star to me. He's not a superstar. Banchero is a superstar. So if a superstar is saying it's me or the coach, I'm thinking that is Paolo Banchero. So I have been hearing today, since Billy Donovan departed, that he wants to go to Orlando. But I don't know that he's anticipating that Florida job to be open. And because he is such a massive legend at Florida, if Todd Golden goes and takes the Golden State job, and you're choosing between the Orlando Magic and the Florida Gators, you're already a hero with the Florida Gators. You already are. And if you come back to Florida, they are going to treat you like a deity. And they are going to pay you like a deity. And they're going to make sure you got money in the portal. And for all the things that you need to be successful, they will give that to you. That's going to be a hard thing, I think, for Billy Donovan to say, actually, I'd rather go coach the Orlando Magic. You're pulling at the strings. Because, again, he walked away from Chicago, which means he is fighting the man, bro. He is taking control of his career at this point. And granted, he's old. You see, you normally say we're taking control of your career in your 30s. When you're in your 60s, the way that Billy Donovan is, maybe that's less of a thing. But it does feel like he actually just turned 60. So in his 60s, it feels like he is saying, I know there are going to be opportunities out there for me. And if you know that the Orlando job is going to be open, but you also know that the Golden State job is going to be open, and if we are hearing the coaching rumors that Golden State, if they fire Steve Kerr, if they depart from Steve Kerr, rather not firing, mutual departing, if they depart from Steve Kerr, if we are hearing these rumors, the coaches know about this. The rumor mill is usually like style. If you pay any attention to style, clearly, stylish king right here. That's me. That's what you think of. But I was told something once that said the American style is like 2 years behind the European style. Like Europeans will do it for like 2 years, and then Americans pick up on it. That's why everyone has like that weird banged, what is it, bowl cut, I guess that they're calling it. I don't have hair, so I don't really care about that anymore. But it feels like style-wise, America's like 2 years behind. It feels like for us, when it comes to rumors, we're like months behind what the coaches know. Like, coaches have probably known that Kerr is likely on the way out of Golden State for months now. I mean, Draymond Green himself said in the clip that we played earlier, it has just felt this way, that this is going to be it. So if they all know that, I'm sure the other coaches know that, and I think Billy Donovan has been preparing. I don't think that he ever really cared about the North Carolina job. I think he was always thinking a couple of steps ahead and the potential of maybe getting that Florida job back. Or who knows, maybe he wants to play with Mickey Mouse at Orlando and coach Paolo Banchero. Maybe that's what he wants. Coach up Desmond Bane as he tries to truck big Isaiah Stewart. This is the only guy that Isaiah Stewart didn't seem to really want to fight. I don't know, maybe Desmond Bane got hands. I have no idea. I'm going to keep you updated on this Lakers and Rockets game. End of the third, Lakers up 75-68. We're hitting closing time. Durant's playing well, 21 points. LeBron's playing well, 19 points. LeBron's knocking on the door of a triple-double. So I'm going to keep you updated on that. Plus, I need a little bit of your help if you're a dog owner. I'll explain what I mean by that when I get back. It's Denton Day on Westwood One Sports Night. Sitting in for Linnell Willingham. Don't go anywhere.
Running backs aren't supposed to be drafted high anymore, but Notre Dame's Jeremiah Love may be the best player in the entire draft. Is Love the exception? Will he go in the top 5? From your home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
They're partying up in California right now. Lakers and Rockets. Lakers up by 8 as we sit here into the fourth quarter. The Rockets are learning that having a point guard is pretty important. They don't have anyone that can handle the basketball. I think right now, taking on a depleted Lakers team, with no Luka, with no Austin Reeves, I mean, Bronny's getting playoff minutes right now. Not a lot, but Bronny's getting playoff minutes. The Lakers have 6 points off of the bench. It's all the starters. It's basically the LeBron, Marcus Smart, and Luke Kennard game, which, by the way, I love seeing Luke Kennard play well. Clean-ass jumper for a lefty. I love it. But the Rockets not having a primary ball handler is on full display right now. I mean, you're getting ripped. Marcus Smart's having one of the games of his life in the postseason. He's ripping guys at midcourt. He's done it a couple of times to Kevin Durant. Not having a guy that can facilitate offense, you cannot expect to be a championship-level team without that. Now, I know the expectation was that Fred VanVleet was going to be their guy, but you know that he's not available right now. And they don't have any option at, hey, who can we put to run the offense? I like Amen Thompson a lot, but he is not a run the offense through kind of guard. That's just not what he is. He can move without the basketball. He's done that a couple times at a really high level. He can slash to the basket. He's a good player, but he's not a run the offense through him kind of guy. They don't have that, and you cannot win, especially in the West. Maybe you could win a game or two or a series in the Eastern Conference with that because the East is significantly weaker than the West, but you can't win in the West if you don't have a guy that can handle the basketball. It's Westwood One Sports Night. Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham. I mentioned I'm going to need a little bit of your help coming up as it relates to a dog situation that I'm dealing with in my life. So I'm going to give you that in a second, but let's take some of your calls. We got a talk and text line that's open for you at 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. We're going to go out to Indiana. Adam is in Indiana, wants to talk a little bit about the Chicago Bulls. Adam, what's going on, man? You're on Westwood One.
Nice, man. How you doing? I'm yeah, definitely the 219 and the 708 over here, man. I'm a scorehead. Yeah, but you know, it's kind of a funny thing when you talk about basketball and you're talking about point guards. It almost seems like it's a lost art. You just dish it off to your Steph Currys and your Hardens, and then, like you were saying earlier, you don't like your high volume shooters. It gets old. It's not bad. It gets away from the root of the game. I guess is what I'm saying. Danny Parkins said it one time when he was talking to John Paxson when the Bulls couldn't get nobody. Nobody would come play in Chicago, and it was the dark times. And he said, why is that? And it's because they're playing a brand of basketball that Chicago doesn't do. And I don't think many basketball fans in general really appreciate this no defense type of thing. You know what I mean? Am I hitting what I'm trying to say?
So I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I do appreciate the call here. I'm picking up what you're putting down in that there are guys that maybe don't want to play for offensive operations that are unorganized. Like when I'm watching Houston right now, that's kind of how I feel watching them. It feels like they are a little unorganized. I've always kind of pushed back on the no defense thing. In the regular season, yes, I actually do think the defense is really good in the postseason, but more than anything, I think the players are so good at shooting that sometimes we mistake really great offense for bad defense. I just think these guys are really, really good, right? So I push back a little bit on the no defense thing, but I've always had it described to me by people I trust as that basketball has to be jazz. It's not a piano recital. And there are a lot of guys that sometimes play basketball like it's a piano recital, where they're just sitting there dribbling the air out of the ball and taking the shot clock down to 6, 7, 5. They're taking it down to where they got to force up a bad shot. And that's not a good style of play. One of the things that the Warriors have done at such a high level, and the reason they've won so many championships, is they're in constant motion. Very rarely do you ever see the Warriors just stand there on offense. It has to be jazz. And I think there are a lot of teams in the NBA right now, and there's some players that do the opposite of that. 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. Let's go to Michigan. John is in Michigan, wants to talk about the Pistons. John, what's going on, man? You're on Westwood One Sports.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So have you heard of the LCA curse, Little Caesars Arena?
I have not, but I'd love to be enlightened.
Okay, so since it's been open, no Detroit team has won a playoff game there.
Is there a reason why that is? Like, did everyone love? Because sometimes when you close one arena and open a new arena, that could cause a curse if you loved the old arena. Is there something there, or is it just a happenstance?
The Joe was loved. Joe Louis for the Wings. Yeah.
So how do you undo the curse?
I think the Pistons will undo it the next game, and I think they'll go on to win the series and just close that. But
I do agree with you in that. I got to be honest. I appreciate the call. I think some of the losing in game number 1 is a little overblown. It's always a good betting opportunity, by the way, just moving forward in your life. If you're a gambler, always bet the 8th seed to beat the 1 seed in game number 1. I did that. This wasn't an 8 versus a 1, but I did that last year in the finals with Indiana and the Thunder. With the Thunder were like massive favorites, and the Indiana I think was like plus 230 on the money line. You slap something on there because that's the game that they're going to take. That's the game that they're going to stun. I kind of feel that way with the Detroit Orlando series. That was just Orlando's one game to kind of stun them, and then eventually the Pistons. They're too talented. They're going to win the series. When you start to play other teams that are better than Orlando, then you're going to run into some problems. But I don't think that the Pistons are going to have a whole lot of issues moving forward with Orlando. And if you have a curse, you got to undo the curse. Did you see, Oliver, today? You're a baseball guy. That there was a program in New York that had the Hawk Tua girl in 2026. They had the Hawk Tua girl on the show in an attempt to uncurse the New York Mets.
I did not see that.
I take great pleasure in telling you that the Mets lost 5-3 today. Yeah. Hawk Tua being on a sports show in the year of our Lord 2026. It's not even my market. I don't care about the Mets literally at all. I don't care about the Hawk Tua girl literally at all. But having her as the one that's going to break the curse, the Mets should lose 12 more games as punishment for that. Like, was Danhausen not around? If you're not a professional wrestling fan, you don't get that reference, but maybe you do because they threw him on ESPN in the lead up to WrestleMania. But he's clearly the one that's in charge of curses across the world right now. Get him on the show, and maybe he can uncurse the Mets. The Hawk Tua girl is not the one that I would put as the one that I think is going to uncurse the New York Mets. Anyway, I digress. I needed your help with something. I had a phone call today. My wife and I are trying to adopt a puppy. I need help with this because I don't know. I have no idea of what to expect when it comes to adopting a puppy. I've shared on the show before. If this is your first time listening, I'll enlighten you. I do have another dog. He's a wonderful boy. He's in remission from cancer as recently as like 2 months ago. We love that. He has like a 1 month checkup literally tomorrow, or literally today now because it's Wednesday on the East Coast. He has a 1 month checkup. He's doing great. We're happy. And we're like, all right, this is the time to adopt a second dog. We've heard of the second dog trend, right? We got a dog that's 10, second dog, get a puppy, give him life, extend the lifespan a little bit. I just need tips and tricks. If you've ever adopted a puppy before and done the second dog for an older dog and in the hope to extend the life of the older dog, give me some tips that worked, some training tips, some food tips, like literally anything. Like, explain this to me like I'm 5. It was the most nerve-wracking thing that I've done in trying to get approved for an application. You know, the wife she's like a real person with a real job, so she's not around at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. I got an email from the person like, can you talk at 3 p.m.? I'm like, what normal person in a 9 to 5 is around at 3 p.m.? Thankfully, I don't work a 9 to 5, so I could. But now I'm in charge of like doing the adoption stuff. It was totally nerve-wracking having to sell myself to this woman. She's asking me all these questions. I just like play with the dog. I walk with the dog. I don't know the ins and outs, the details of those things. That's what my wife is really good at. She's had our boy since he was like 9 months old. He's 10 now, so that's like her dog that I have been fortunate enough to be the stepfather of effectively. It was nerve-wracking. So I need all the tips. If you have tips, please give them to me in what the next steps are, what the hacks are for adopting a pet and making it go as smoothly as possible. It's Westwood One Sports Night. Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham. When we get back, an update on the Rockets and the Lakers. It's getting close in Los Angeles. Don't go anywhere. It's Westwood One Sports Night.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
Westwood One Sports Night with Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham. Linnell will be back with Josh tomorrow and later this afternoon, later this evening. We got eyes on the Rockets and Lakers right now. It's the final few minutes of the game. Lakers up by 9, or by 5 rather now, with 4.5 to go. It's becoming a little bit of a duel here in the fourth quarter. LeBron's playing really well. He's a few rebounds and a few assists away from yet another playoff triple-double. So we'll continue to update you on that as the game progresses. As I had mentioned, Houston's big issue right now is that they do not have a ball handler and they don't have a primary point guard. That is becoming very, very obvious because Durant is now having to do everything. Which, in fairness, if there's one player that I would want to do everything, it would be Kevin Durant on that roster. But that is not a sustainable way to win a series. And the Lakers did get some good news. I meant to share this earlier, so I will now share it. Well, I'll share it now instead. It's not regarding Luka. The expectation is that Luka is not going to be good to go for round number 1. But there is some optimism that if this series prolongs to 5, 6, and certainly 7 games, that Austin Reeves is going to return. He's been doing some one-on-one work on the court. Obviously, you need to progress a little bit to 3-on-3, to 5-on-5. This has all been reported by Shams. But if he progresses to 3-on-3 and 5-on-5, then he's going to be good to go. Now, I would argue if Austin Reeves comes back, there's zero chance the series goes to 7 games. So if he gets back by game number 5, I mean, hell, at this rate, it may not even go to 5 games if the Lakers can pull away in game number 2. Although you go to Houston, it becomes a little different. But if Austin Reeves gets back, the Lakers are going to be in a really, really good spot because I just don't think that Houston right now has the firepower to be able to match up with the Lakers if they are even remotely healthy, right? So hopefully we get to see Luka in round number 2. I know there was like some optimism a couple of days ago that maybe if it went to 7, that Luka would be available. I'd prefer them to just get out of round number 1, and then whoever they play in round number 2, we get to see Luka come back, and it's going to be a better team. It's going to be a much more fun matchup, and I would just like to see our Slovenian King play in that one. Did get a couple of helpful tips in the YouTube comment section with the dog situation. You can watch us on YouTube, Westwood One Sports Night. We also have a talk and text line available at 310-840-4910. You can also tweet me and follow me on Twitter at the Denton Day. Our guy R. Willie B chimes in on the YouTube section and says, you got to treat your old dog like the king. The puppy comes second in the hierarchy, gets second privileges, put his food down after the old dog, walk them as much as you can together, no sleeping in bed. I can promise you the sleeping in bed thing is not going to hold up very long. I literally have to wrestle with my current dog for my spot in bed. He never takes my wife's spot. Never. He will only take my spot. My wife went on a vacation once. She went on a work trip to Belgium. She was gone for an entire week. He never once went to the other side of the bed. He just always came to my bed. So the not sleeping in the bed thing is going to be tough. That just is what we are as a family. The other stuff is good information, though. These are basic things that you probably already know if you have 2 dogs that I just don't know because I've only had 1 dog. Also, we already treat the other dog like a king. I mean, he survived cancer, so he gets everything. He's actually being very bratty right now because he doesn't like dog food. He only wants human food. So he's like throwing fits when we don't give him dog food. Big story of the day in the NBA is not so much the Lakers and the Rockets as LeBron and the Lakers continue to extend the lead to now, quick math, 6 points. The big storyline came from the Blazers and the Spurs series, and Victor Wembanyama goes down. And when I say goes down, I mean literally faceplant to the hardwood. I have never seen a human being fall like that. That is kind of one of those problems where you only have if you're a 7'5" monster. If you're a nerd like me, think of Star Wars, Luke circling around the big bad machines, taking their legs out, and they kind of fall onto the floor. That's kind of how Victor Wembanyama fell. Nothing to catch his fall other than his forehead. And that's not fun. I don't need to, I've never experienced that. I don't need to experience that to know that that is not an enjoyable thing to experience. He hit his head hard as hell, bro. And it looked like it sucked. He has a concussion. That's been confirmed. He went into protocol. That was kind of the no-doubter, though. You know, sometimes you'll see an injury take place, and you're like, well, you know, maybe there's some hope that it's not as bad as it seems. I would argue that's very rarely the case, but it happens from time to time. This was a no-doubter. You saw his forehead hit and bounce off of the floor, and you're like, yep, that's a couple days that he's not going to be around for. And the basic protocol is that you have to wait at least 48 days, or 48 hours. Jesus, could you imagine 48 days? Oh, my God. You got to wait 48 hours to be reevaluated. Now, the way that the Spurs and Blazers series lines up, timing-wise, it does kind of benefit the Spurs in this. So they play the game on Tuesday. Their next game is going to be played, game number 3, in Portland. You get the 2 days off, and then you get a travel day in there as well. So that's going to be played on Friday, April 24th. So you got 3 days. Theoretically, if this does not end up being nearly as bad as it looked, because it looked awful, there's hope that he would be available for game number 3. I would not count on that. I would not. Just based off of the way his head hit the ground and just the precaution that you're going to need to take. I would not expect to see Victor Wembanyama in game number 3. Game number 4 is played on Sunday, the 26th of April. That's at 3 p.m. That might be an option. If this is not nearly as bad as it looked and he can return in the series, maybe you're looking at game number 4. I'd also point out they're going to need him. The series is split 1-1. Portland kind of gave him the business a little bit from a physicality standpoint. They looked really good. Scoot Henderson had the game of his life. Picked a really good time to do it. He goes for over 30, and the Trailblazers win. So you're going to need Victor Wembanyama. It was very clear in the final stages of the game without him, they don't have a dude. They just don't. San Antonio, they have names that you might recognize if you play 2K, if you play fantasy basketball. Does anybody play fantasy basketball? Is that a real thing? I did that once when I was in high school, and I couldn't keep up with it. I was like a sports dork, too, and I still didn't understand the concept. But if you play fantasy basketball, maybe you know, and you're very comfortable with some of the guys that are on the Spurs team, but they're not closers. They're not. I didn't see the necessary dog in them to be able to hang with the Portland Trailblazers. Portland just wanted it more at the end of the game. And Wembanyama was out for a majority of the game. Like, it's not like he got hurt in the fourth quarter. He was out a majority of the game, but they just kind of fell apart, San Antonio did, in the late stretches of the fourth quarter. You're going to need to play significantly better long term, but you're also going to need Victor Wembanyama back. The physicality was a point of contention, at least a little bit, after the game. De'Aaron Fox, point guard for the San Antonio Spurs, addressed this with some post-game comments. He did not like the way that the game was officiated. Here's Fox after the game.
What did you guys think about the physicality that they came at you guys with, and how you responded as a team, but also some of the younger guys like a Steph Castle and staying composed?
Oh, I mean, if they're going to be officiated, and let them be physical. Just let us be physical back. That's it.
What did you guys think?
So here's the thing. Hate this. Hate this. Hate this. Hate this. I do not think that the Spurs deserve to be saying that. I usually don't mind bashing the refs. What the hell do I care about them for? I don't mind bashing refs. I don't. Job's hard. You got to be really good at it. That's a requirement. So I don't mind that. I do kind of mind it in this scenario, though, because if you just gander at the box score, you don't even have to have watched the game. If you just look at the box score, I would not think that the point guard complaining about the foul discrepancy, the physicality discrepancy, would be playing on the team that shot more free throws. The Spurs shot 28 free throws compared to the Trailblazers 23, and you're going to get up there and complain about physicality? What happened to the Spurs of old that we loved, where they wouldn't do this kind of stuff? It's like that. It feels like kind of loser behavior. I like De'Aaron Fox. I think he's a really good player. But I don't think you can complain about the physicality when it sure looked like you were getting the benefit of that. And if you make free throws, you missed 8 of them, San Antonio did. They shot 71% from the free throw line. If you make just 4 of those bad boys, you win the game. I feel like the complaining about the officiating and the physicality has become, it's like been way taboo for a long time now, but it's almost to the point where it's annoying a little bit. And like, you got to have a really good case if you're going to sit up there and complain about that. Now, I wasn't playing the game. I don't know physically how it felt on the floor, but seeing as the way and seeing how they ended the game, they being San Antonio, struggling mightily to score baskets because they could not get to the rim. They settled for threes. I don't know that you should be complaining about physicality there. Now, if you drove to the rim, final seconds of the game, you're down 1. You're driving to the rim, you get clearly fouled, they don't call it, ball goes the other way, they hit a bucket, and it's a 3-point game. You should have been up 1, potentially 2. Now you're down 3. Maybe you have a gripe at that. But that's not how the game ended for San Antonio. I hate that kind of comment from De'Aaron Fox, and he was the guy that was missing the shots. He had multiple opportunities, good looks, in the fourth quarter, and he came up with nothing for his squad. And then wants to get up at the table and say, well, the physicality, they were officiated differently than we were. Miss me with all of that, man. Just get up there. Hey, we did not play well. Stop looking for the excuses. Take the accountability. We didn't play well. It's on to game number 3. I miss the old Spurs in that particular regard. I love what I heard from Scoot Henderson, though. Again, he was the star of the game. 31 points for Scoot, 11 of 17 from the floor, 5 of 9 from three-point range. 31 in 38 minutes, leads the Trailblazers to a win in a game where Denny Avdia wasn't spectacular. Here's what Scoot Henderson said when asked when he knew. This is a bar, by the way. This is what he said when he was asked when he knew he was going to have himself a good game.
You were pretty locked in from the opening jump there. Was there a moment that you felt it? Pre-game, locker room, warm-up, during the game? When did you realize you had it tonight?
When I woke up.
What? Elaborate. What went through your mind? What, you woke up and did what?
I woke up, brushed my teeth, went downstairs, got dressed for shoot around. I say right after I brushed my teeth, going downstairs. Yeah.
So why then?
I don't know. It's just a feeling. I get it. Kind of just telling myself the night before, like, just attack. Like, they can't mess with you. So, yeah, that was my goal, to come in here and attack, get downhill, play hard, and whatever happens, happens.
All right, so it becomes a little bit less of a bar when he had to fully explain, I walked down the stairs, I brushed my teeth. But if the Trailblazers win this series, which is very much a possibility, not knowing the status of Victor Wembanyama long term, if they win this series, that is going to be on every single hype video that Portland puts out. They're going to be montages of it. It'll just be on a loop outside of the stadium. The owner, that cheap-ass owner that they got out there, which more on him coming up later, but that cheap-ass owner is going to be forced to put his money where his actual mouth is and to just play the loop of Scoot Henderson. When did you know you're going to have a big game? When I woke up. Because that in itself, that's a great mentality that I love from a young player who's experiencing the postseason for the first time. I just knew I had to get out there and I had to attack. And damn it, he did that. Because the Spurs, they did not have the answer. Maybe that's what De'Aaron Fox meant with the physicality, is that Scoot Henderson was so physical and he felt like he could not be that brand of physical. Maybe that's what he meant. But I saw a dude that took advantage of an opportunity. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers effectively are playing with house money. You're not supposed to beat San Antonio. You're not supposed to advance in the postseason. You're in this weird in-between where you're not a good team, but you're not a bad team. So you're like right on that middle ground to where you're just going to be in the postseason and then get ousted from the postseason on a routine basis. It was kind of like that for a little bit in the early years of Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge, and then they rose above that. So maybe you'll have your time. But they feel like they're playing with house money and they're a little bit ahead of schedule. But to see him step up and play the way that he did, I love that, man. His road was not easy once he got drafted there, because he got drafted to the Portland Trailblazers when they were getting rid of Damian Lillard. That's a sucky time to be around in Portland. But for him to get that moment, awesome. And for Portland, you got to win when Denny Avdia didn't play very well. He's 5 of 13 from the field. This was not a good Denny Avdia game. So that has to feel pretty good if you are Portland as well, thinking, all right, we got ourselves a real opportunity. We now got home court advantage. They don't have that big alien that we can't figure out. We're going to put ourselves in position here to potentially steal a series and knock off the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. I would hate that, by the way. I want to see Wembanyama and OKC in the Western Conference Finals. I'm selfish. I want to see that. I want to see Victor Wembanyama beat up on OKC. I don't like watching OKC play. You probably don't like watching OKC play. The foul baiting is a little over the top. I'm not a Dylan Brooks guy, but when Dylan Brooks said on national television they foul bait a lot, I was like, you know what? A broken clock is right twice a day. That's a win for Dylan Brooks. He then was an idiot in game number 1 and messed around with Chet Holmgren and then got beat by like 40. But the moment where he said they foul bait a lot, that's a win I considered for Dylan Brooks. I want to see San Antonio crush the dreams of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Coming up, I'm going to update you. We're about to go final in Los Angeles.
Did the Rockets make a late-game push? You'll find out when we get back. It's Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham on Westwood One Sports. Don't go anywhere.
Your team has a chance to change its trajectory overnight.
There's always a couple teams that no one expected that goes worst to first.
The NFL Draft is Thursday. The teams you care about and the prospects they could pick. We have the latest news you need to know from your home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
We're final in LA, 2-0. Lakers lead the Rockets. They win the game 101-94. This felt like a never really in doubt kind of game. In watching it, every single time that Houston would get even remotely close, the Lakers would just say, no, and we just pull away. It's that old commercial, the rabbit and the carrot. Got to be quicker than that. Got to be, or maybe that was a person. I don't even know. But you know the commercial I'm talking about. I don't watch television like that anymore. Got to be quicker than that. Got to be quicker than that. The Lakers were just pulling the carrot away from the Rockets the entire game. I have fairly or unfairly presented this series as something of a legacy series. Not for LeBron. LeBron's legacy is set in stone as it relates to his peers. He's chasing the ghosts of Jordan and Kobe or whoever you think is in the top. We're not doing a LeBron and Jordan debate here. That's not what we're doing. But his legacy amongst his peers is pretty set in stone. He's the best of the generation. For Durant, I think Durant has played LeBron really well on several different occasions, but it's impossible to ignore in the postseason that he's played him really well when Steph Curry was there. And now that you're playing him without Steph Curry, it is not going that well. And I thought that Durant needed this series to prove something that he knows to be true, and that most of us, if you watch basketball, know to be true, that the Mount Rushmore of the generation is, well, there's an open fourth spot, but it's LeBron, it's Durant, and it's Curry, right? Then you could put whoever you want to in that fourth spot. Maybe it's Kawhi, although that's kind of weird. Maybe it's Harden, although that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know who you would put in that fourth spot, but those three, they are set in stone. But I wanted to see how Kevin Durant was going to step up against LeBron James, especially with LeBron being, he is the locomotive of the team right now. If Luka was healthy, you'd be looking at this a little bit different, but you got a Rockets team that's without a point guard. You got a Lakers team that's without two of its three best players. So it's just LeBron and Durant. And how is this going to work? Really bad for Houston because they don't have a point guard. Kevin Durant made 7 shots tonight. He had 23 points. So efficiency-wise, it's pretty good. He shot 9 free throws tonight, made 8 of them. He had 9 turnovers. 9 turnovers. Because he's the primary ball handler, because they don't have one. And from a legacy perspective, this is not the version of Kevin Durant that I wanted to see against LeBron James. This is the Kevin Durant that's running around and fixing all the small problems in the house. And just when he fixes the leak in the bathroom, it starts leaking in the kitchen. And when he fixes the leak in the kitchen, well, there's a noise in the garage that you now got to go check out. And he's just sprinting around the house that is the roster of the Houston Rockets, trying to do everything in his power to fix it and make it okay, and he's failing at it. It's an insane task to ask a guy like Kevin Durant, who you theoretically traded for, under the guidance of he's just going to be Durant. We're going to go ask him to shoot 15 shots a game once we get to the postseason and just let him cook. Let him be the Hall of Famer that he's going to be. Let him be the guy that's in these conversations on whether he's a top 15 versus a top 10. Maybe you think he's a top 20, but he's in the conversations of top players that we've ever seen in the game. We want him to be that. And instead, they're kind of asking him what Dallas asked Cooper Flagg to do. You pay attention to Cooper Flagg when he was their point guard, leading scorer, asked to be one of their best rebounders. I mentioned being the point guard. He's facilitating. Durant is being asked to do what Cooper Flagg was asked to do in Dallas, with a teeny tiny, very, very small difference being that one of those guys was on a team that was tanking, and the other one is playing LeBron in the playoffs. Ime Udoka, maybe his hands are tied at this point as well, but you guys didn't have anybody else on the roster that could handle the basketball? There's not a single guy on the backup list. Hey, he could be a point guard. Not a single one. You got roster spots for guys that you ain't playing. But you didn't think to put a guy that could properly handle the basketball on the floor. What thought process is that? Because it feels like one that was set up for failure. Van Vliet's been hurt for a while. You knew he's hurt. You knew that you weren't going to see him in a majority of the season, if at all. Why did they not make any sort of moves to address that glaring issue? Were they just hoping and praying? I don't know what goes down there in Houston. Maybe there's like a shaman. Maybe they hit up Aaron Rodgers. Hey, who prays over your knee when you get hurt? Mr. Wellness. Is there an ayahuasca plant we can give to Van Vliet to get him right and motivated for a playoff run? And when you found out the answer was no, you didn't address it again at all? It's organizational malpractice. I'd love Kevin Durant. I hate seeing one of my favorite players go down looking like a goof because his organization didn't do enough around him. LeBron's hooping, but that's what LeBron is. LeBron was knocking on the door of a triple-double. He came up short. But he had 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, only 3 turnovers. He can handle the ball. His vision is still very much there, by the way. I mean, there were a couple plays late in the game where LeBron was like peak LeBron. But in asking Kevin Durant to do too much, you are basically killing yourself in the series. Maybe they go back in game number 3 and they light the world on fire and they steal a game. But based off of what we've seen in the first 2 games, there's no chance this goes past 5 games. Like 0, zip, zilch, nada. A big old goot. Like, it is not happening because the Lakers are only getting healthier. And the stress that you're putting on your superstars, if you're Houston, is only going to get heavier. Again, you could steal a game. Although if they do steal a game, I have to admit, this feels like the kind of series where they would steal game 4. You go down 0-3. Everybody in the world knows that you are going to lose the series. This is not going to be the team that comes down from 0-3 and pulls off the miracle. They're just not built that way. So maybe they would steal like game 4, which is just prolonging their death, it feels like. That's all I can see from this. This has been a little bit of a bummer because I really had high expectations for it. I did. I wanted to see another installment of what was likely going to be the final installment of Durant and LeBron in the postseason. And we are getting a version of Kevin Durant that I did not want to see. Maybe in his prime in Oklahoma City, he could do something like this. I just don't think that Kevin Durant should be in a position to where he can even turn the ball over 9 times. Because think about that. You know how hard it is to turn the ball over 9 times? He only shot 12 shots. He only made 7 of them. He was actually playing at a very high level efficiency-wise. But he turned the ball over 9 times. That's like impossible to do. And they forced him into doing that. I want to see the version of Kevin Durant that shoots 40 times. You know, I'm a hypocrite. I really am. Because I said some things about high-volume shooters and Cade Cunningham. I think Cade Cunningham is a high-volume shooter that is not going to have long-term playoff success until he gets out of that habit. To hell with all of that when it comes to Durant. I want Durant to shoot 50 times. I don't care at this point. If this is going to be the last real great installment of LeBron and Durant, because I don't know how much these guys have left anymore. And I'm coming to the realization that the players from the era that I claim, your Durants, your LeBrons, your Stephs, this is all finite. We are very close to the end with a lot of these dudes and very far from the beginning with all of them, right? We don't know how many years are left any of these dudes have. I think LeBron has 1 year left, and then LeBron is done. I think Durant might have 2 years left. Steph has multiple. The shooting obviously helps a little bit. He's been relatively healthy. I mean, obviously he's had some like nagging issues, but it hasn't been anything colossal over the past few years. So I would still say that Steph is in the position to go the longest between the 3 of them in terms of years from this very point. No one's going to go longer than LeBron. I mean, the guy's played against like half the league, it feels like, in the history of it at this point. But knowing that we're not going to get to see these guys much longer, I just want to enjoy the ride. So I've been really bummed about how this Rockets thing has gone. So that series is 2-0. Philadelphia made things really interesting with Boston in winning the series or winning the game number 2, 111-97. This to me was the biggest surprise of the day. The Wemby and once the Wemby injury took place, you could kind of see, all right, this is Portland's avenue to come and steal a win and then make that a series. I did not think that Philadelphia had it in them. I didn't, especially without Joel Embiid. Like, if I looked at this score having not had watched the game, I would have thought, oh, Joel Embiid came back. This is awesome. This is going to be a series. That's not what it was. I've been very vocal that Boston, I feel like, is the best team in the Eastern Conference. Boston has been my champion. I put money on it. I got it early, 9-1. I've been bragging about that. And I've been bragging about that under the thought that I'm going to then celebrate the win with everybody if they do win the championship. They're making it hard right now because they should have won this game. Philadelphia didn't do anything special tonight. This wasn't like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of game where they shoot the lights out of the gym. You get a guy that traditionally scores 4 points a game and he has 40. This was not that at all. This was just Philadelphia playing to their potential. And they whooped Boston doing that. That should scare the Celtics. They're not as untouchable as maybe they thought. They're certainly not as untouchable as I thought. I thought they were going to walk the dog with Philadelphia. Or just walk the dog all over Philadelphia with no Embiid. If this is what Philadelphia plays like without Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey goes for 29. VJ Edgecombe goes for 30. He's been excellent this year. When Paul George is like a sturdy number 3, that's a really good roster that you have going on. We've seen a lot of teams attempt to position Paul George as he's our number 1 option. He's not number 1, but he's our number 2 option. I mean, hell, the Clippers traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to get Paul George. Now, they got Kawhi Leonard, too, because Kawhi laid out an ultimatum of it's either me or you got to get Paul George and you get me. I'm not signing here unless you get me help. And then they did that. So it was kind of like a 2-for-1, if you will. Still didn't win that trade. I've seen so many teams position Paul George as being the guy. It's nice to see him in a role that he belongs in, which is the third guy right now. And just think, if Joel Embiid comes back, a lot of what-ifs in the NBA postseason. If Joel Embiid comes back and Paul George is your 4th option, that's a really good roster. He's not a 1 or a 2, but he's a damn good 3 and 4. Specifically 4. If he's your 4, oh my God. This is like every NBA team's wet dream. You'd love to have Paul George as a number 4. You just don't want him as a number 1 or a 2. So that scares me a little bit if I'm Boston. They just didn't have it. They don't have a legitimately good number 3 consistent option. Jaylen Brown went for 36 tonight. Jason Tatum went for 19 tonight. Those are the only 2 guys that scored in double digits. That's it. Peyton Pritchard scored 4 points in 27 minutes. The Caitlin Clark of the NBA. He scored 4 points. That's not a third option. Derek White didn't crack double digits. I thought he was supposed to be the third option. He went 3 of 12. Now, he's kind of like a missile at times. Hot and cold. Katy Perry of the Boston Celtics, if you will. He went 2 of 10 from three-point range. I don't care what the number is in game number 3. I am betting Derek White's over 3-point made. I don't care what it is. I might even go a little off the book, maybe pick an alt line, get myself some positive money as a gambler, because that's just kind of the player that he is. He'll go 2 of 10 one night, and then he'll go 8 of 10 the next night from three-point range. Well, tonight was the 2 of 10. You don't have a reliable third option if you're Boston. Roster-wise, you feel top to bottom like you're pretty good, but this is a series now. So we got 2 games that were played today with Portland and San Antonio. That has now become a series because of the Wembanyama injury. And Boston and Philadelphia, that has now become a series because Philadelphia proved they can hang, and they proved they could hang without Joel Embiid. So if we maybe potentially see Joel Embiid again, well, Boston might be in a little bit of trouble. Now, I don't know if we're going to see Joel Embiid again. I mean, that feels like pie in the sky. But if we do, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. It's NFL draft season. I am really, really excited about what's going to take place on Thursday. We're going to have great coverage for you on Westwood One Sports. Bleck and Abdallah are going to be out there. They're going to be interviewing all of the players that get drafted who are in attendance at the NFL Draft in Pittsburgh coming up this Thursday. You'll hear all of those interviews on Westwood One Sports Night, but I love the draft. There is one thing I don't like about the draft, and I'll share that with you when we get back. It's Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham on Westwood One Sports Night.
We're covering the NFL Draft unlike anyone else can. Reporting from Pittsburgh with exclusive first-round player interviews.
I saw my family and they started crying. I thought I was going to start flowing.
Happy Draft Week from your home of the NFL.
It was definitely surreal, something I dreamed of as a kid.
Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
I love the NFL draft. I am a certified draft geek. The week leading up to the draft is by far the worst week. You have guys that are running around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to just get like one last rumor in. Trying to get like one last, hey, I want to be the guy that said this player was going to get picked here. And it is like maddening at this point. We already know who's going to go number one. The draft starts at number 2. It's the age-old saying when you have a quarterback that's good coming out of the class, because you know that quarterback's going to be drafted 1 overall. But like the constant flip-flopping, if you're a fan of the Jets, one, I'm praying for you because you have chosen a life of hell. But if you're a fan of the Jets, you're probably sick of it at this point. You have no idea if you're going to draft Arvell Reese or David Bailey, or which one's going to be better, or which one Aaron Glenn likes, because one trusted source says this, another trusted source says this, and it's all this back and forth, and it literally just becomes like overstimulating hell in your brain. I prefer David Bailey, if I'm being honest, but I have no idea what they're going to do. Like, I love mock drafts, but this week is just, it's pandemonium. I'm in Washington. I don't have the fancy, like, commander setup the way that Linnell does. Linnell is typically on the show on this day, but he's under the weather, so Denton Day, that's me. I'm filling in. I'm a Commanders guy, and it feels like what the Jets are going through times a million with what Washington is going through, because you can't predict who's going to be there at 7. So you're getting all of these different reporters saying, oh, I think this guy, if they're there at 7, is Washington's guy. Well, what happens if all of these dudes are there? I've heard just this week alone that Jeremiah Love is Washington's guy at 7, that Sonny Styles is Washington's guy at 7, that Reuben Bain is Washington's guy at 7, that Jordan Tyson, because of his workout this week, is actually Washington's guy, that Cornell Tate is Washington's guy, that Arvell Reese, if he's available, is Washington's guy. You'll notice that's 6 guys. So is everybody Washington's guy if they fall to 7? It's like, I love the lead up to the draft because I love watching the players, and I love watching. I'm a college football guy. I host college football radio on Sirius XM during the season. It's my biggest passion in this weird and wacky world of sports that I exist in. I love watching the combine. I love watching the film in the lead up. I'm not like uber film guy, but I do watch film in the lead up to the NFL draft, and like the idea of trying to predict where guys are going to land and how they're going to fit and what this person's going to look like playing next to this person. All of that is very fun. I do feel like, though, that this final week is just, it's a money suck for those that gamble on this sort of thing. Because everybody is associated with a gambling company, so when they're giving information that kind of influences the odds at whatever book that they're associated with, and it just feels like it's all one big ruse to try and get you to bet on such and such going at this pick to this team to make some sort of money. And odds are you're not going to hit the bet. And I love gambling, but I like gambling when it's pro the gambler. I don't like when it's pro the book. I don't like when it's pro the house. To hell with them. I want the money. I want you to have the money. I don't want them to have the money. You remember the scenario that took place a couple of years ago when Will Levis was coming out of the NFL draft, and this speaks to what this week is in the NFL draft. And this is a real thing. This is a real story. A post was made on Reddit that said, somebody really loves Will Levis. He's going to go number 2 overall. And usually when a post is made on Reddit that says something like that, you just kind of brush it off. You're like, all right, this is a crazy Redditor. They don't know what they're doing. It's like YouTube comments, right? I love everybody that's hanging out with us in the chat. If someone just randomly dropped, I actually think that Jordan Tyson's going 2 to the Jets. We're probably not putting a lot into that, right? And I don't want to discredit any sources of those of you in the YouTube chat. But we're probably not put a lot of stock into that because we don't know what you actually know. But with the Will Levis thing, the gambling odds went ballistic. And Will Levis jumped massively, and people threw a ton of money on him. And then where was Will Levis drafted? Not number 2 overall, because it was just a Reddit post that everybody freaked out over. That's how I would encapsulate this week. Now, with that said, as it relates to the actual football stuff, I think the Jets would be smart to take David Bailey at 2 overall. If it's between David Bailey and Darvell Reese, I'm going to take David Bailey at 2 overall. The case that's been made for Reese, I find to be fascinating. It's a combination of fascinating, but like not the fun kind of fascinating. It's almost more so worrisome than it is fun. Because the case is, well, he can do all of these different things if you want to play him at a hybrid role. I'm not taking a guy at a hybrid role, number 2 overall. Have never agreed with it, even when it was a Travis Hunter. I get the Travis Hunter hype. I'm not taking a hybrid at 2 overall. I don't want a project with the 2nd overall pick. And that's not to say that he is exclusively going to be a project. He can rush the passer. He was a good athlete in college that could rush the passer. But David Bailey is a pure pass rusher. He has been my number 1 guy in this NFL draft at the edge position, which is a group that is very, very deep. It's a loaded class this year for edge. Bailey has been my number 1 guy since about October. I thought he was really good at Texas Tech. He did some really, really good things, and I think he is just a natural rusher of the passer. I lost my mind on social media the final week of the NFL season. If Linnell was here, he could attest for this, because we did a Commanders pre- and post-game show locally together. I was losing my mind when Washington won a meaningless game when Philadelphia played backups the final week of the season, and it cost them the 5th overall pick. It made them fall all the way to 7 because I thought that David Bailey was going to be available at 5. And I have been desperate for a guy like David Bailey. He, to me, is a guy that comes in and is immediately really awesome. And if you're the Jets and you have the flexibility of having multiple first-round picks, it feels like the selection that you should be making at number 2 overall is the guy that you think is going to come in and immediately be really, really good. Not, oh, well, he can cover. Here's an idea. This is just an idea. Don't draft a defensive end to cover. Draft him to pin his ears back and get after the quarterback. Draft him to play the run, to stop a weapon on the other team from getting to the outside. Arvell Reese is going to find a home in the NFL that I think is going to fit what his skill set is. I just don't feel like the Jets are that right now. You need a guy that is a dog on the defensive line. Go draft David Bailey. You don't need to complicate this entire thing. Just look at the guy that you think is the best pass rusher that could make an immediate impact. And he is that for me. He checks all of the boxes. You don't have to worry about, if Ruben Bain had 34-inch arms, he's clearly the number 1 guy. But the arm length is a real problem at the NFL level. So your 3 top edges, you don't really know what Arvell Reese is going to be at the NFL level. One guy has T-Rex arms in Ruben Bain, strong as hell, but his arms are short. That's a real problem. That's why Will Campbell in the Super Bowl was getting beat like a drum. His arms are short. Most NFL tackles have 34 to 35-inch arms. Ruben Bain isn't even touching 31 inches. That's 4 inches. It's a lot of inches. That's a big difference that you're going to make on a defensive line. Bailey is the one that does not have any of those issues to me, as far as I'm concerned. So if I'm the Jets, I'm taking David Bailey. And then that's where the draft really starts. Whoever they take at number 2, then the trades that we have heard about, what feels like nonstop, right? The Kansas City general manager is talking about trades. Oliver and I were just talking during the break, and he's mentioned how Brian Gutekunst of the Packers, he's been playing around with the idea of trades. It sure feels like Arizona wants to trade out of number 3 overall because you can probably get one of the tackles, if not all 3 of the tackles. They'll be available at probably 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth. Like, there's got to be a splurge of defensive guys in the top 10, leaving those tackles available, and you could just get more draft picks in the process of getting the guy that you really, really wanted. So I think there could be a little bit of chaos going on. We've already seen that with the Giants trading Dexter Lawrence for number 10. They feel like they're taking an offensive player at 5. That could be Jeremiah Love. That could be Jordan Tyson. That could be Carnell Tate. Whichever one of those guys that they fall in love with, they're going to take him at 5 and then still probably land a defensive guy at 10. Now, that could be probably going to be Caleb Downs. I don't think that Caleb Downs is going to go top 10 or going to go before number 10. So I think Downs could be the Giants' pick at 10. But it feels like they're going to get a nice weapon and then a good defensive player. I think we're going to see pandemonium coming up on Thursday. Love to know your thoughts. 310-840-4910. That's a talk or a text line. You can tweet me as well at the Denton Day. We'll go around the association, some of the biggest stories of the day when we get back on Westwood One Sports.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
It's Westwood One Sports Night, final hour of the program. We usually call this the watching hour, so we'll see how we end up going. We're on YouTube as well as your radio dial. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Westwood One Sports Night. We're on a mission to get to 1,500 subscribers, so if you're not subscribed, go to the YouTube, press the button, smash the subscribe button, if you will, and follow us and ride with us on the journey that we're on. We got a talk and text line, 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. You can tweet me directly at the Denton Day. We're going to get to a potential massive bombshell that could be dropping in the NBA momentarily, but we saw last night, now officially last night, the Trailblazers stole a game from the San Antonio Spurs, thanks largely to the fact that Victor Wembanyama left the game with a concussion. He fell flat on his forehead like a clumsy 4-year-old, but he's a 7'5" man, and he did it on a national stage. It was incredibly dangerous. It looked like it hurt like hell, and Victor Wembanyama is likely not going to be available for game number 3. I have found the NBA's official concussion policy. So I'm going to read through this, and then we can decide together as friends whether or not he's going to be available for game number 3. I'm going to spoil it. He's not going to be available for game number 3. This is pretty intensive, and it makes sense. I mean, you're dealing with a brain, and you don't want to be, one, it's like a liability thing from the NBA's perspective of we have seen what's happened with the NFL. We're good. We don't need Will Smith playing a doctor in a movie about us and how we suck at protecting the brains of our athletes. We don't need multi-billion-dollar lawsuits where we got to be the ones paying the multiple billions of dollars because we didn't protect our athletes. So the concussion policy is pretty strict. So this is what it reads for the 2025-2026 season. It gets obviously adjusted. You need to have an acute evaluation and management period. And what that means is there's going to be you're prohibited. God, that word is hard to say at 2 a.m. You're prohibited from full participation if a player is diagnosed with a concussion. He cannot return to full participation without restrictions. The big restriction is a 48-hour wait time. Over the course of a regular season, that's not nearly as big of a deal. Over the course of a postseason, that's a massive deal. These games are played at a much smaller turnaround. Now, you still get 3 days between game number 2 and game number 3 in this particular series. Game 2 on Tuesday. Game 3 is going to be played on Friday because you get a travel day to Portland. But that still doesn't leave you a whole lot of time if you're Victor Wembanyama. On top of that, there's more. They cannot return until the player completes the required return to participation process, which, if it's anything like the NFL, there's a lot of tests that you're going to have to go. Impact tests, cognitive tests, just making sure that, again, your brain is operating the way it needs to be and you don't run the risk of massive further injury. Right? Like you kind of mess with an ankle and you injure it more, it sucks, but it's an ankle. You only get one brain. I guess you only get one ankle. I don't know that we've developed ankle replacements yet, but that could be next. But you only get one brain, so you got to be really particular with this. The policy continues. You can have a return to full participation with the requirements being met. The requirements of a player who had a concussion may not return to full participation without restrictions until he is without concussion-related symptoms at rest. So that's your vomiting, massive headaches, eyesight situation, all those sorts of things. He's been evaluated by a team physician. He has successfully completed the NBA return to participation exertion process, which that is like your tests, impact tests, physical tests, running up and down the floor, that sort of thing. And then the director, this is the final one, the director of the NBA concussion program has confirmed that such clearance by a team physician or other physician is consistent with its policy. You got to jump through every single hoop imaginable and then find more hoops to jump through and then jump through those before you can come back from a concussion. And on top of that, that man then has to get on a plane. Flying with a concussion sucks. Never done it. Feel pretty comfortable firing at the hip and saying that's not a fun experience. So he has to do all of those things and then find a way to travel there. Now, once you're clear of the concussion, I'm sure the traveling is not going to be nearly as bad. He's also, like Wembanyama's, not flying coach, so he's not having to fight over the armrest with someone that smells like Fritos. Like, he's not dealing with all those sorts of things. It's a little bit more luxurious for a man of his caliber, but still, the idea of flying from San Antonio to Portland when you're still potentially dealing with those symptoms sucks, which means you're not going to fly until you're fully cleared. So that needs to be taken into consideration of the process as well. Like, just the human practicality part of this thing is that you actually have to get to the next destination while dealing with the symptoms that you are dealing with. I'm not expecting to see him in game number 3. I'm not expecting to see him in game number 4. I'm not a doctor. I'd be stunned if he's available before game number 5. I honestly feel like 6. Game 6 is going to be the game where we might realistically see him again, just based off of the way that his head hit the floor and then the process that you're going to have to go to get cleared to play. They're going to need him because Portland played really well in the absence of Victor Wembanyama, but that's just going to be something to monitor, and it sucks because I want to see Victor Wembanyama. He is the storyline. He is what we care about in the NBA postseason. Ain't nobody give a damn about the Oklahoma City Thunder, with respect to our friends in Oklahoma and the Oklahoma City market. Ain't nobody give a damn about your team. Your team's kind of annoying at this point. You foul bait. You make fun of us for not liking it. I don't like that. Nobody likes that. I want to see Wembanyama destroy them, crush them, use his alien-like technology to zap them. That sort of thing. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm Denton Day. I'm sitting in for Linnell Willingham on Westwood One Sports Night on Westwood One Sports. You can connect with me on Twitter at @TheDentonDay. You can tweet me there. You can connect with us on the phone, 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. It's a talk and a text line. So you can call us, you can shoot us a text. If your text is good, we'll read it. I do have a very good text that I need to read in our next segment. I wrote it down specifically, so that's a little bit of a tease for that. It's a new installment of something that we did last week that a listener helped us out with. Before we get there, though, we're in a very unique position right now as NBA fans with the future of the Golden State Warriors. Steve Kerr feels like he is out. We are getting multiple reports from Golden State saying he is out. I am curious if there are thoughts in that organization of everybody being out. I would never pull the trigger, personally, on a move that sends Steph Curry away from Golden State. However, I'm also not paying him $60 million. And eventually, the operation does move on. The wheel continues to turn. And not everybody is going to be a part of that. So I do wonder with Golden State, as they embark in this new journey, this new era of Warriors basketball, how new is the era going to be? Because while it would be crazy to get rid of Steph Curry while he's still playing at a top 10 level of basketball, there needs to be realistic conversations had of, can we build a championship caliber team while paying a guy upwards of $70 million? Because that's what it is going to require for Steph. And Golden State right now is projected. We'll see what extensions look like. But they are projected to be nearly $115 million over the salary cap in 2026. Do you want to, as an ownership group? Now, your franchise is worth billions of dollars, plural. That's double digits, by the way, too. So you got the pockets. Not everybody is this Portland Trailblazer dweeb that wants to cancel free shirt night so we can save an extra couple $1,000s. You got deep pockets. You can handle the payment of Steph Curry for that. You can. Do you want to, though? Because the perfect time to blow it up is to blow everything up and start anew, rebuild the Golden State Warriors. They kind of tried to do something like that with the James Wiseman pick a couple of years ago, right? When you realized, all right, this is a post-Kevin Durant era. We were so bad because Steph got hurt that year prior after the Kevin Durant stuff, so he missed the entire year. Clay was hurt already because of the lower body stuff, the Achilles and the knee. It was just Draymond and a bunch of young dudes. They sucked, got a good draft pick, drafted James Wiseman, and he turned out to be nothing, right? They didn't want to draft LaMelo. They wanted Wiseman. In fairness, Wiseman was a great prospect in college, thought that he was going to succeed at the NFL level or the NBA level, just didn't end up working. It happens, right? It happens. Now is the time, though, if you're Golden State and you really wanted to do something crazy, because Steph is still playing at a level that would garner you something in return. If Mikal Bridges can go for 5 first-round picks, if Desmond Bane can go for 4 first-round picks, all you have to do is not be an idiot the way that Nico Harrison was an idiot, where he was just giving Luka Doncic away for practically a bag of chips. He's like, oh, is that king size? Spicy nacho Doritos? Yeah, take Luka Doncic. All you have to be is not an idiot, and you would get a massive haul in return. You save yourself a boatload of money, you move Jimmy Butler as well, and then you fully lean into this new era of Warriors basketball. They're not going to do this. They're not. But this is the first real opportunity that they have ever had to make that what their future is, to fully invest in the future of the Golden State Warriors. I happen to think that behind closed doors, there's a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, Bob Myers literally left. He was like, I'm done with this. I'm going to try my hand at just hanging around a football team. Well, he did the ESPN bit first. And then he realized, all right, this ESPN show is not very good. It's like tainting my name. So I'm going to go with the Commanders and then kind of just hang out around Magic Johnson. Whatever Magic Johnson touches seemingly turns to gold. So I'm just going to go hang out there, and then we'll just kind of see what happens. I'm just so fascinated by this because we rarely see dynasties hit the point where they blow up. We saw it with Miami, if you want to call Miami a dynasty, but that was more LeBron blowing things up, and then the Heat still ran it back with D. Wade and Chris Bosh, and it didn't work, but they attempted it. Like when the Spurs dissipated, everybody retired. And then Tony Parker weirdly played like 2 seasons for the Charlotte Hornets, which he tries to blank from everybody's mind. I'm sure the Hornets try and blank that from everybody's mind too. That was just a weird scenario. But it was more so retirements, dissipated. Same thing with the Lakers, right? Like Kobe was there for a little bit longer, but Paul Gasol retired. Ron Artest was like gone, he was being Ron Artest. And then Kobe hung out. You tried the Jeremy Lin thing, tried the Nick Young thing. And then he was like, all right, I'm retiring. But like it's natural disbursements, it feels like sometimes with dynasties. This is a very rare instance where the team itself could just say, no, we are donezo. Steph has said, I got multiple years left. If you don't believe me, here is Steph Curry after a play-in game like a week ago saying, I have multiple years left.
Still seeing multiple years. How many hours left in the career? Multiple, for sure. That's more than one. Yes, that's perfect. Would you be interested in an extension? For sure. But none of those conversations have happened, so it'll be a busy summer for the Warriors.
The expectation is that those conversations are starting this week. That was reported today by Ramona Shelburne of ESPN. So the Warriors and Steph are going to start talking about an extension, which means he's going to stay. Then you just got to figure out everybody else. Jimmy Butler's on the hook for $56 million. Draymond is on the hook for just under $30 million. That's 3 players right there that you're paying nearly $150 million. And you just got bounced from the play-in. You can't do that anymore. While Draymond did play in the first game of the play-in, one of the best games we've seen him play in years, I would call it obtuse to think that is the reality of who he is going to be in the 2026-2027 season. That's not it, right? He has it every now and then. It's like when you scroll across on social media a picture of somebody that you had a thing with in high school. You just scroll across. You're reminded of some good memories, but you realize I left them in the dust, or they left you in the dust, but we're going to be positive. I left them in the dust. I'm on to bigger things. It kind of feels like what Draymond is as a player. Right now, he's a hell of an analyst. Like, I actually enjoy his podcast. He's kind of a crazy dude on the floor. But his podcast, and generally when he does some stuff with TNT, I happen to enjoy it. So he has a future there, and he can make a lot of money there, basically just being like the next Charles Barkley, if you will, the guy that says a bunch of weird and crazy, raunchy things and kind of gets away with it because, well, we just like him. I mean, like, Charles Barkley says crazy things, but we just say, hey, he's Chuck. He's just kind of like him. So we just allow that sort of thing to happen. That feels like the next step for Draymond, but he even addressed this. This is Draymond from his podcast earlier this week saying that I don't think Steve Kerr is going to be back.
I've never been so uncertain since early in my career on what happens next, but I'm truly at a loss now because you just don't know what direction will be what. Steph, myself, Steve shared a moment in what could be our last time playing with Steve as our coach. I'm happy we got to share that moment, and like, he didn't miss the moment. It was a big deal. I hope he's our coach next year. You want my opinion? And I think not. Just because it just feels like that. It felt like that was it. I also hope I'm on this team next year. We also don't know that. And man, if it was, what a run it's been. So lucky to have had for 12 years Steve as my coach. We shall see. I don't know. Just got to stay ready for whatever it is and roll with the punches.
I've always loved this run for the Golden State Warriors because I like Kevin Durant. I like Steph Curry. It'll be interesting to see when everything is all said and done how people reflect on that, and getting them all in a room is, well, now they like retire teams to the Hall of Fame. So obviously some of those Warriors teams are going to get put in the Hall of Fame, and getting everybody together. I know Steph and Kevin Durant are cool. I don't know what the relationship is there with Draymond. He's a prickly dude, man. He is. I think if you're on his good side, he's a great person to have on your good side. If you're on his bad side, you got to protect the body. The head, the groin, just the actual body itself. Devin Booker found out the stomach is an area that he likes to go after. Like, you better protect yourself. You better be walking around in bubble wrap. I played Call of Duty when I was younger. You better have a riot shield going on there. He's a dangerous person to be around if you're on his bad side. I did kind of like the self-awareness of that, though. I just think I feel good about the idea that Steve Kerr is not going to be back next year for Golden State. I have no feeling for what that team is going to look like. It feels like a failure if you sign Steph to a major extension of $70 million and then you go back in with a Jimmy Butler that's coming off of a massive injury and might not be available for the first half of the season, and Draymond Green. You have to make drastic changes around him, and then do you want to pay for those changes? Do you want to pay Steph Curry $70 million, trade multiple draft picks to get a Giannis, and then sign Giannis to an extension that's going to be in the neighborhood of $60 to $65 million? You probably don't want to do that. Well, you do, but you don't. Are you going to be competent enough to pull the trigger in doing so? Do you want to take a swing on Kawhi Leonard? I don't know what people feel about Kawhi Leonard in NBA circles. He almost feels very similar to Draymond, minus the physical harm that he could occasionally give to other people. I still think of Kawhi as the 2019 player that won the championship with the Raptors. But that was almost 10 years ago now at this point. Yeah, I'd made a comment earlier in the program about the Mount Rushmore of an era. Like, if you're looking at just this era, right? It's LeBron, Steph, Durant. Or maybe not this era in particular, but the previous era, the one that's on its way out of the NBA. Like, Giannis is not included in there. I don't include Jokic in there. Jokic is the current era. But of the old era, it's LeBron, Durant, Curry. Blank spot. At a time, that blank spot was Kawhi Leonard. But I don't know that he's there now. And I don't know what NBA fans or an NBA management is going to feel about him. Do you want to pair Kawhi Leonard with Steph Curry? Is that a risk that you are willing to take? If this is the final leg of Steph Curry's career, and you want to make one more big push to the championship, do you want to hitch your wagon, your secondary wagon, to a guy that has proven over the course of, well, literally every single year since the championship year, that he does not play in a lot of games and might not be readily available for you? If I'm putting $70 million into the operation, I would want a safety net. That's just me personally. All right, coming up, we're going to get back to some NFL stuff. I debuted a segment yesterday called Denton's Questions to Linnell. We're going to do that segment again, but it has been given a new name thanks to a listener. So I'm going to share that with you when we get back. Is Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham on Westwood One Sports?
Westwood One! The NFL Draft is upon us. We'll have live picks from the podium, instant reaction, exclusive player interviews. Bet MGM tonight with Pat Boyle and Brad Evans. Coverage starting at 6 Eastern, Thursday, from your official home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
Sitting in for Linnell Willingham. He will be back later this evening with Josh Brigham for a Wednesday edition of Westwood One Sports Night. Leading up to the NFL draft, our draft coverage is going to be killer. Bleck and Abdallah going to be out there in Pittsburgh interviewing the draftees as soon as they get done hugging Roger Goodell or dapping up Roger Goodell or whatever this year's bit is going to be with Roger Goodell. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. You'll be able to hear those interviews on the Thursday edition of Westwood One Sports Night. Bleck and Abdallah are kind enough to give us those interviews. Very nice of them. They will also join us from Pittsburgh at some point as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love the NFL draft, and getting to see where all these players end up landing is going to be awesome, especially when we have spent now like 4 months trying to decipher where these players are going to land. I just got done talking about Steph Curry and the potential that Golden State could move on from him. It's like 1%. They're not going to move on from Steph Curry, but this is the perfect opportunity if they wanted to take advantage of. You could still get a lot for Steph in return via trade, and then you get this $70 million extension off your books, and you can get your head above water financially, a place that they have not been since this Splash Brothers Steph Curry run started now 12 years ago. Tony wants to weigh in on this on Montreal. Tony, you're on Westwood One Sports. What's going on?
Hi, how you doing? I appreciate the the call, and I like the show. And I just want to just mention that we have a lot of sentimentality for these, aging superstars, right? And we believe that they can play forever. But I think you're 100% right. That the way the baseball is right now with deferred contracts and the way that the amount of money that's coming in, teams are now billion-dollar teams like the Jets in New York are worth $10 billion, even though they're losing. And, money doesn't guarantee a successful franchise. Certainly in New York, they spend a lot of money with the Mets, and they're on a 12-game skid. But what I think your idea is pretty smart, because he's worth a lot to a team, let's say like New York Knicks. Like if he could hook up with Brunson, I think they could win a championship. And I did watch Kawhi when he was in Toronto. Obviously, Canada was all behind Toronto's team, and he was really well managed. And I think he's pretty fragile. And you're pretty right on the fact that he will not probably endure a full season, and he's got a lot of injury issues. But he's an amazing player. He's a wonderful player. But he might be physically fragile. And that's when you're looking at $70 million for a guy that's going to play half the season, that's a lot. But I think your idea of getting multiple draft choices or draft picks for Curry would be probably in the best interest of his team and his ownership, like brain trust or whatever you want to call it. But when you say they don't want to give him up, is it because of sentimentality? It's because of his name brand, and it would be like sort of turning against a player that was so loyal to them? Is that what your reasoning is? Because today.
So it's many things. I appreciate the call. It's many things. There is the sentimentality. There is also the fact that he's still really good, and if you are of the belief that he's still a championship level player, then you want to keep as many championship level players around to compete for championships. I would say it's a combination of both of those things. I did pull up the Forbes list. This is from 2025. The Warriors are the second highest valued team in American professional sports. The Dallas Cowboys are 1 at $13 billion. Golden State is 2 at $11 billion. That is not exclusively because of Steph Curry, but a lot of it is because of Steph Curry. Like a lot. And it's really difficult to depart from that. Like, no matter how good you are, if Steph Curry's on your team, you're going to have butts and seats. You're going to have merchandise flying out of the arena. And you're always going to have a nice television deal. You're going to have good advertising. People pay to be around and to be associated with Steph Curry. $11 billion. Generally speaking, the NFL is king in this country, and they are valued higher than every single other NFL team with the exception of one. And that one happens to be the biggest brand, arguably, in the country. Like, of all things, it's one of the biggest brands in the country in the Dallas Cowboys. But a lot of that is because of Steph Curry. So you're not just... It is going to take a very, very... You would have to be a ballsy individual to make that sort of decision. If you remember when Luka was moved from Dallas and they revolted, they did that to a guy that had been there for like 7 years or so and hadn't won a championship. Imagine what a fan base would do to a guy that's been there for 17 years and got you 4. You're going to see a different side of the fan base. That kind of decision is not made for the faint of heart. You got to be a special kind of character to make a decision like that. It's Westwood One Sports Night. Denton Day sitting in for Linnell Willingham. Last week we debuted a segment on the show called Denton. I called it Denton Asks, and then Linnell got upset at me because he doesn't like saying the word asks on radio, which in fairness, that is a difficult word to say. I got a text message, and you can text us. We got a talk and text line. It's available all the time, 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. And you'll notice we actually do read the text line. So, like, when you text us things, somebody sees it. I don't know that the hosts all see it, but I, normally the producer of the show, usually do see all your text messages. We had a lady text in. Her name is Maureen from Seattle. She texted me and she said, Denton, I have a perfect name for your segment. And I was like, I'm all ears. And she said, you should call it Denton Deliberates or Denton's Deliberations. And I was like, that's a badass name. One, I love alliteration. And like, two, it kind of works. So that's what we're going to call this now. It's going to be Denton Deliberates. I feel like that's probably the best version of that. It's easier for me to say. So it's going to be Denton Deliberates. I have a segment for Denton Deliberates. Even though Linnell is not here and I'm not going to pester him with questions, I'm just going to ask questions into the ether and then I'm going to answer my own questions. So it's a song and dance with myself. I'm literally just going to dance with myself in my studio here for the next 10 minutes or so. My big question that I had here is, why did Mike Tomlin lie to us? Mike Tomlin left the Pittsburgh Steelers on his own accord. He was not fired. He stepped away. And then he had told us, I have no interest in doing television. When I step away, I'm stepping away. He signed a deal yesterday to do television. I knew it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen. I have no idea how good he's going to be on television. I think he's good, or I thought he was good, when he would do press conferences because he was direct and he was to the point. But there needs to be an element of entertainment that I don't know that Mike Tomlin, I don't know what he is as an entertainer. Like, they got rid of Dungy. He's joining NBC, Sunday Night Football. They got rid of Tony Dungy because Tony Dungy was kind of bland. Good dude, good coach. He didn't add a lot. You kind of forgot he was there at times. I don't know that you'll forget that Mike Tomlin is there at times, but I do wonder what he's going to be like on television. I'm excited to see it. I think there's real potential there. I mean, I think he's going to be better than Jason Garrett. He's going to be better than Tony Dungy. So I do think there's some real legs there. He lied to us. He told us he was not going to do it, and then he turned around and he did that. And that hurts my feelings, Mike Tomlin. It does. I bet they're paying him a boatload of money too. I mean, that guy's agent is probably living great right now. Billy Donovan leaving Chicago. This is more of a news dump than anything, not a deliberation, but I am going to deliberate on the fact that Chicago is literally in hell right now. They have been a perennial play-in team, didn't get to the play-in this year, and then you got the coach that theoretically said no to North Carolina, a premier basketball job in the country, professional or college, doesn't matter. He basically said no to Carolina, and then like 3 weeks later, said, this place is so bad, I'm leaving. And I'm not even going to get fired. At least if you fired me, you'd have to pay me on the way out. It's run so poorly here that I would rather just take my ball and go home and potentially wait for the Magic to fire their coach. Potentially wait for Todd Golden at Florida to take Steve Kerr's job so I could maybe go back to the University of Florida, where I really made headlines winning back-to-back national championships. It's so bad in Chicago, and that kind of sucks. You know, I think of Chicago as one of the great organizations in the NBA, although I have to admit, the more that I pondered that thought, I realized they just had Michael Jordan. That's it. Like, before Michael Jordan, they were ass. They got Michael Jordan. They were good. After Michael Jordan, well, they had the Derrick Rose bit, and Derrick Rose was good for a little bit. Then his knee injury took place. And they've just been average. They've just been the most average run-of-the-mill organization for years now. And he basically said, I'm done. Like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I just turned 60 years old. I got only a decade left or so of this coaching thing. I'm going to go coach at a place that I trust, at an organization that's run by adults, like adults. Final thing here, Denton deliberates. Joe Buck, the rumor is that Joe Buck is going to be hosting an ESPN Jeopardy. This got me steamed up, man. I need to know where I can apply for something like that. I have applied multiple times. I have been rejected multiple times. But I've applied multiple times for Pop Culture Jeopardy. It was this thing that Amazon did where like Colin Jost hosted it. And I had thought in my mind, I'm going to apply for Pop Culture Jeopardy. I'm going to get on Pop Culture Jeopardy. I'm going to become best friends with Colin Jost, and I'm going to steal Scarlett Johansson. That never happened. Probably never will happen. But I do like the idea of Jeopardy. Like, I like game shows. I like trivia. I'm into that sort of stuff. I grew up watching, this is a kind of a deep pull if you're younger, but I grew up watching Stump the Schwab. I'm working with my guy Oliver, who's in our Culver City studios. Oliver, do you have any idea, have you ever even heard of the show Stump the Schwab, or did that completely miss your generation?
No idea what you're talking about.
It was this crazy trivia show where you had this dude, the Schwab, and he knew everything. It was a trivia. They'd ask him all these questions. It'd be like, who led in batting average in 1964 in the AL? And he'd be like, here's the 4 guys that led. And you're like, dude, how do you know that? Like, what level is your brain at that mine can't compute to? Like, I had no idea. But I loved the show because it taught me, like, the fun of trivia, and I wanted to stump the Schwab. They canceled it as, you know, that particular company started to shy away from good quality sports shows, and now we get, like, hot take stuff all the time. But I am for every single iteration of sports trivia that we can get. I know Dan Patrick had something similar to that a couple of years ago. It was probably like 8 years ago now at this point. I think it was when I was in college, which is give or take 8 years ago. Joe Buck, bring in a Sports Jeopardy show back. I need the application in my email inbox as soon as possible. I need to be in there. I don't know that I would win, but the idea of playing a Sports Jeopardy is something that Denton Day is very interested in, so much so that he's referring to himself in the third person. When we get back, we'll put the show to bed. You'll hear a little bit of sound from what happened post-game with the Lakers and the Rockets. I'm Denton Day. I'm sitting in for Linnell Willingham. We close the show next on Westwood One Sports.
The Cowboys have 2 first-round picks, and the entire draft is watching. Stay put or move up. Every Dallas decision reshapes the board. The NFL Draft starts 8 Eastern, Thursday, from your home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Denton Day.
If you're a Mets fan, man, good for you. Not actually. I'm just talking about, like, you're a loyal person. Someone that's trustworthy. Your team sucks. I mean, 13 in a row. Like, dude, or 12 in a row, I guess. 12. Sorry. Got ahead of myself. Probably going to be 13. Although Juan Soto was projected to be back in the lineup tonight for the Mets. I don't know if he's the savior. I think they just all suck. I can't imagine paying the amount of money that they are paying. Steve Cohen in particular. To have your team then lose 12 in a row in April. There's never a good time to lose 12 in a row. But it feels like when everyone is being sold the bill of goods of hope is a particularly bad time to lose 12 in a row. If it's in the dog days of summer, it sucks, but like whatever. You don't want to lose 12 in a row in September. You don't want to lose 12 in a row in April. And they are doing one of those things. I guess September would probably be a little bit worse because you're then likely losing out on a postseason berth. Anyway, Mets suck. It's been a good show. We got a talking text line. Had a lot of good callers come in. Our YouTube chat's been going crazy. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, Westwood One Sports Night, come hang out with us. We're here on a nightly basis. There's been a couple of the chat has been going crazy tonight, so we thank everyone that's been hanging out with us in the chat. They've talked about showers. Why? I don't know. You have to look at the chat. They talked about Jerry Reinsdorf. Our guy, we still don't know if this guy his name is pronounced Jaime or Jamie. I think it's Jamie. He says that he wants to know about Conspiracy Denton. He says he thinks I have a lot of conspiracies in my beard. You don't want to know about Conspiracy Denton. Conspiracy Denton's going to get me fired, so we ain't. I do have like fun conspiracies, but a lot of them are in the world of professional wrestling, which most people maybe are not that interested in at this time of the night. But those are the fun conspiracies. You got to tread lightly with some of the conspiracy stuff, though, man. It gets out of control. I did want to play a few things real quickly as we wrap up here. The Lakers beat the Rockets 101-94. They took a 2-game lead in the series. The biggest point of failure for Houston is their handling of Kevin Durant and what they're making him do. which in the instance that we saw in game number 2 was he's handling the basketball too many times. That should not be his role. And what came of that was 9 turnovers. That's an unacceptable amount, but it's unacceptable because you should not be asking Kevin Durant to handle the ball to the point where he's turning it over 9 times. Like, turning the basketball over 9 times is an insane thing to do. A reporter asked J.J. Redick about that at the end of the game, post-game. Here's what J.J. Redick said about putting the defensive pressure on Kevin Durant and forcing the 9 turnovers.
Last month when y'all was in Houston, Kevin said that this defense that y'all presented to him then, that was the best version of the defense y'all was going to have. He had a postseason career, 9 turnovers. Like, how does that defensive execution make you and your team feel being able to do that with him?
We're just getting this thing started, and he's the type of player that can take over a series, and we just have to continue to have a great team defense and great activity.
So they know how talented Durant is, and they're basically just saying somebody else is going to have to beat us. And then on top of that, we don't think that you will be able to find the somebody else that is going to beat us. I had thought initially when the trade was made that the biggest benefactor was not going to be Fred VanVleet. It was going to be Amen Thompson, because he was awesome last year. And I just remember watching and thinking, this guy is going to be a stud. If they position him well and they put the necessary pieces around him talent-wise, he's going to be something. And I've been a little disappointed this year. He had 16 points tonight, which is solid. He had 9 assists, which make you think, well, this is awesome. He should be the one handling the basketball. It just feels like he's at the stage of the career, or with comfortability in what they're doing, where they don't trust him to run the offense at a high level against a good defense. That's my takeaway from watching him, because Durant should not be handling the ball to the point where he could turn it over 9 times. Amen Thompson turned it over 3 times, but he had 9 assists. It should. Eventually, you're going to have to graduate. You know Fred VanVleet's not going to be there for forever. He was barely here this year because of the injury. You know that you're going to have to graduate him into a bigger role in the offense. Now is the time to do it. I mean, you're in desperation mode now. You're down 0-2 to LeBron James. You know who doesn't lose a lot of 0-2 series? LeBron James. Who? LeBron James. He just doesn't lose. He's had the most playoff wins since 1995 in the entire NBA. That's going up against franchises, by the way. He has more playoff wins since 1995 than the San Antonio Spurs, who are next on the list, do. He has more playoff wins than they do as a franchise. He's a singular player. He also didn't make it the postseason until like 2005, 2006. So you got 10 more years of sample size in a 30-year stretch, and LeBron James is just crushing everybody. You go down 0-2 to that guy, you better try something, man. Hey, Amen, you are running the offense, bro. Marcus Smart is a devil, but you're going to have to deal with that devil. France called Steph Curry the devil. Marcus Smart is going to be that for us for the next few games, but we are going to trust you that you are going to be able to do something with it. Because you just can't put Durant out there for 9 more turnovers. All right, final thing here. We are going to put the show to bed. So, Oliver, if you would be so kind, please give me the lovely music that we have found to put the show to bed. If Linnell was here, I don't know that I'd be doing this story. He and I conflict on this particular topic. But his favorite rap artist, who I think sucks, did just announce an album today. And I'm happy for Linnell for that. He gets to listen to the trash music that Drake's going to put out on May 15th, this Iceman album that he announced. And I'm bringing this up because there was something in the lead up to it that I thought was hilarious. He did this rollout on stream, which I be streaming right now, so I love the stream. Doing a rollout and an album announcement on a stream is kind of weird, but whatever. That's just the way of the times. I'm old. It's fine. He put something on there that said, 2026 is going to be my year. But in doing so, he crossed out. So the number was written as 2024. He crossed it out and put 2026 on it. What happened in 2024? This is why I wish Linnell was here. I just want to ask him about what happened in 2024 that made it not Drake's year. I guess he's acknowledging the fact that he got his ass whooped in a rap beef, and he's still suing, still doing the lawsuit route. Lawbury, Drake Graham, over there. I just found that to be funny. At least he's being somewhat self-aware. His fans like doing weird bits, and they're like commenting ice, like the Ice Cube emoji on a bunch of Kendrick Lamar like Instagram posts. I'd leave that man alone. Like I'd stop. I'd take someone else on. Like comment literally anywhere else. Leave Kendrick alone. You don't want the smoke. Ain't no game 2 here. I hope that if you're a Drake fan, you enjoy the album. I ain't going to listen to that trash, but if you are a Drake fan, I hope that it is something that you enjoy. And that's how we're going to end the show, by dunking on that Canadian fraud that is Lawbury Drake Graham. Big thanks to Oliver Popular and Culver Studios for doing a great job. Appreciate you guys listening to us. It's going to be Linnell and Josh tomorrow. See ya.
This is Westwood One Sports.